International students at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201. It's difficult to meet when we meet. The embarrassment was only temporary, and soon they figured out how to drive the car. And Mr. Weasley's magical changes made it a full-operated car like a toy car. It is so simple that you only need to control 4 places: brake, accelerator, steering wheel and joystick. It is as easy to use as a bumper car. Lou-Ren quickly mastered the way of driving, and Fred and the others took turns to test drive the 2 cars in this way. They raced all the way, and soon flew from Devon, where the borough was located, to Surrey, where Harry was. The 2 counties are about 150 miles apart and can be reached in 3 hours by car. They managed to find Privet Drive in Little Whinging, Surrey, but when they revealed their car and passed the Dursley house, there was a little surprise. Uncle Vernon was on the balcony while smoking. Lou-Ren met his eyes, extremely embarrassed. Lou-Ren's mentality was broken. What time is it? Why haven't you slept yet? Just when Lou-Ren was thinking about asking if there was anyone here who could forget the curse, Uncle Vernon yelled, "Come here. Take your luggage and leave this house with your friends." Things went a little differently than everyone expected. Uncle Vernon didn't intend to isolate Harry from the outside world at all, nor did he restrict his personal freedom. On the contrary, he was quite happy when he saw someone willing to pick Harry up. "What's going on here?" X2. After Uncle Vernon loaded Harry's luggage into the car and the car shot into the clouds, Ron and Harry asked a question in unison. So Harry told everyone exactly what happened to him tonight. His letter was intercepted by a house elf named Dobby, and he warned Harry not to go to Hogwarts this year after being rejected. He threw a plate of pudding at the head of Mrs. Mason, who was a guest of the Dursleys, and Harry was forced to use a levitation spell to stop the plate. To explain the phrase "feather Guardium Leviosa," and there was an impromptu poetry reading from Harry. Harry and the Vernon family were going to cover up this matter together, but an owl flew in through the restaurant window like a whirlwind, dropped a letter on Mrs. Mason's head, and flew away like a whirlwind. This broke Mrs. Mason's psychological defenses, and she fled screaming. Mr. Mason also said that his wife was terrified of all kinds of birds, big and small, and then resigned. Apparently, the Masons' personal relationship with the Dursleys was over. Originally, if this kind of thing happened, Harry would definitely be crammed into a room for confinement, but Sirius gave too much. So Uncle Vernon could only sulk on the balcony alone, with a stick smoke one after another. Then came the aforementioned scene. A car fell from the sky, saving Uncle Vernon's mood. Things went smoothly. Lou-Ren drove the car back to the borough. Along the way, they discussed Dobby's true intentions. While speculating about Dobby's master, they suspected that Dobby was an elf from the Malfoy family, and this reasoning was outrageously accurate. Just as everyone was chatting, the sun emerged from the horizon, and they arrived at the borough. They gently landed the car next to the dilapidated garage, and Lou-Ren also took a closer look at the appearance of the borough. It was even more dilapidated than he imagined. The predecessor of the borough seemed to be a pigsty made of stones, and then a few floors were built crookedly on this foundation. There were some high-top leather boots and a rusty cauldron beside the door of the house. "Everyone keep your voices down. Let's go quietly back to our bedrooms," Fred urged everyone, but he fell silent only halfway through. Mrs. Weasley was standing in the yard, angry as if a tiger. For the rest of the morning, Fred, George, Ron, and Lou-Ren and Harry, who volunteered to help, cleaned the floor polluted by ghouls in the attic, mopped the dirty floor vigorously, and then cleaned the floor with buckets. The sewage was carried to the garden to water the flowers. There was one more person in the borough. Harry's arrival seemed to have had little effect on the family, but it seemed to have had quite a few effects. Ginny became even more shy. It seemed that every time Harry appeared, Ginny would knock something over and blush like a sunset, but Harry pretended not to see it every time. After a few minutes, Ginny would be biting ears with her best friend Alice, and usually this kind of best friend conversation would end with a giggle. What Lou-Ren likes most is the tall apple tree in the yard. He likes to sit under the tree to read a book or to be in a daze, but today he is reading the letter under the tree. There are also 2 envelopes scattered around him. One envelope is made of yellow parchment with green characters on it. This is a letter from Hogwarts, and the other is an ordinary letter from Hogwarts Sensitive. Since the vacation, he hasn't been able to see Hermione again, but he has kept in touch with her at a frequency of about 1 letter a day, and he told Hermione everything he encountered. This is it made him regret it. because Hermione felt nervous and anxious after seeing the news, and Hermione's nagging sound seemed to overflow from the lines on the letter paper. However, after returning to the burrow, the frequency of letters dropped a lot. Errol, the owl of the Weasley family, was very old, and Lou Wren was worried that it would die on the way to deliver letters one day. However, the name of his family's owl, Lou Wren, also wanted to complain about it. He actually named it Errol. This name seemed to make a lot of mistakes. Lou Wren looked at the second-year students' book lists, and smiled wryly. Lockhart really has a business sense, forcing students to subscribe to his own books, and this will directly increase the average subscription by several hundred, which author is not jealous, and these books are really very expensive. However, Lou Wren also understands that the folks will also feed the pigs before killing the pigs, so there must be some benefits for asking Lockhart to be a sacrifice, right? But one thing to say, these books are good storybooks. Lockhart is at least a good writer. Lou Wren read a few of his works. The plot arrangement is quite reasonable, and the environment rendering is also excellent, which made him regain the feeling of staying up all night chasing online articles when he was in school. Leaving Lockhart behind, he read Hermione's letter. Dear Ren, Lou, Ron, and Harry, if you're here, best wishes. I hope you are safe, and I hope you didn't do anything illegal when you went to pick up Harry. I am really worried. Please write to me as soon as you get home, but you'd better get an owl instead. I want to send you another letter and the bird will die. I'm busy preparing for homework, and I'm planning to go to London next Wednesday to buy textbooks. How about we meet in Diagon Alley? Let me know your situation as soon as possible. By the way, Lou Wren, I have received your portrait. It is very beautiful, friend, Hermione. The title of this chapter hides deep meaning. By the way, this volume is coming to an end. 32 chapters are expected. End of this chapter. Chapter 202. I will only feel sorry for my brother. By Wednesday, Mrs. Weasley woke them up early in the morning after a delicious bacon sandwich. They arrived in Diagon Alley via the Flu Network. After arriving at Diagon Alley, Alice's eyes widened, as if she wanted to take in everything around her. Soon, she discovered two wizard clothing stores, the Outer Clothes Store and Mrs. Malkin's Robe Specialty Store, and then she left the queue and broke into the Outer Outfitters. Lou Wren had no choice but to say goodbye to Mrs. Weasley and followed. The out-of-the-world tailored clothing store is somewhat different from Madame Malkin's Robe Specialty Store. It is more favored by pure-blood witches, and it is a high-end store. After Alice walked into the store, she was warmly received by the clerk. She recommended to Alice one after another of robes, witch hats, shirts, skirts and other standard clothing. Lou Wren glanced at the price tag, and was shocked. The same style, the clothes here cost one more zero than Madame Malkin's. Fortunately, Alice did not go shopping. She just packed two hats and a scarf. These three clothes cost 160 galleons. Then she went to the Madame Malkin, where she had her robes custom made and purchased some underwear and skirt socks. While she was shopping for clothes, Lou Wren bought Alice a big ice cream at the nearby Flor and Fusco ice cream shop. While Alice and Mrs. Malkin were discussing whether a short skirt should go with white short boots or Japanese flat student shoes, she looked up and saw Lou Wren standing outside a window holding a huge ice cream. Alice's eyes lit up. You are very discerning. It doesn't matter, I want it all. Pack it up, I'll go out first, and I'll come back later to pay the bill. Okay, dear. Mrs. Malkin said goodbye to Alice happily, and then happily packed all kinds of clothes. One order for this business is worth 3 orders, and if it is a boy's order, it is even more. 1 order. Top 5 list. Alice ran to Lou Wren's site and took the ice cream with 6 balls from him. There are only 3 flavors for the 6 balls, though: plain, vanilla, and yogurt. These 3 flavors are Lou Wren's favorite flavors, and they are also the 3 types of ice cream that most test the level of ice cream shops. A really good shop must be able to show amazing strength in the simplest food, so when Lou Wren buys ice cream, he seldom adds various accessories on it, such as crushed peanuts and raisins. He usually only chooses 3 flavors: plain, yogurt and vanilla. As for strawberry, chocolate, matcha and the like, he is very offensive. Although it is already August, no matter the weather, ice cream will always have a place in people's hearts. Alice took the ice cream ball, which was still emitting a hint of ice mist, and sniffed it lightly. A milky scent came to her nostrils, which directly dispelled the trace of fatigue she felt while shopping. Looking at the ice cream ball, a hint of cunning flashed in her eyes, like a little fox scheming up tricks. Brother Lou Wren, if you buy this for me, your girlfriend won't be angry if she finds out, will she? Lou Wren? Question mark. Why are you acting like a demon again? She lightly licked the original ice cream on top, her eyes narrowed into crescent moons. She seemed to enjoy it very much. It's delicious, bro, you have a taste. The ice cream hit Lu Ren's mouth, and he licked it subconsciously. Don't say it, this shop is capable, and the milk aroma is strong. Alice retracted the hand holding the ice cream all of a sudden, and shouted in a fuss, wow, brother, we eat the same ice cream. Your girlfriend won't be jealous I don't have a girlfriend. Lu Ren saw that gossip started to appear in the eyes of passers-by, so he hurriedly clarified in the British magic world, there is usually no news. The average British wizard is a gossip. If Lu Ren does not clarify in time, he may really win the title of Harem King. Yeah, when my brother lived with me, he used my owl to send letters to Hermione every day, and my owl was exhausted. Brother, come to Diagon Alley with me, Miss Granger knows, won't beat me up. It's scary, your girlfriend, unlike me, I only feel sorry for brother. Wow, you act like a monster when you get up early in the morning. You must be punished severely. Then Lu Ren took a big gulp of ice cream without any hesitation, eating 2 whole balls in one go. Lu Ren directly felt a burst of milky aroma and icy air rushing into his brain, freezing his whole body. Alice saw that a third of the ice cream was gone after a few sentences, and she didn't dare to provoke Lu Ren anymore, so she quickly ate the remaining ice cream in her hand. Lu Ren. Hermione's voice came over. Lu Ren looked up and saw Hermione standing on the white steps of Gringotts. She trotted down the steps, her shaggy brown hair flying behind her. She looked overjoyed, as if she wanted to give her long-lost friend a hug, but she refrained from thinking about it when she saw Alice. I haven't seen her in a summer vacation. Hermione seems to have grown up a bit, and she no longer looks like the little girl in the first grade. To be precise, Hermione, who was born on September 1979, is almost 19 years old now. She is placed in the Central Plains. Also a sophomore student. Lu Ren's heart skipped a beat. Hi, how's your vacation? It's okay. This is the Miss Greer you mentioned in your letter, right? Hermione was not interested in talking about the holiday activities. She thought about Alice carefully. She really didn't expect this girl to be so pretty. Ah. Lu Ren gave an affirmative answer, and at this time Alice bowed gracefully to Hermione. It's a great honor to meet you here, Miss Granger. Lu Ren often tells me about your adventures. Hermione immediately felt great pressure. Alice's image was completely different from Lu Ren's image. Fortunately, Lu Ren resolved the situation. Okay, there are still a lot of things to buy today, and you won't be able to buy them all when the train leaves. Then he took Hermione's hand and took Alice to join the Weasleys. When they met the Weasleys again, they knew that Harry had experienced a wave of wonderful adventures. He was sent to the Borgenbach Black Magic item store in Knockturn Alley because of his inarticulate words, of course. This store is definitely not called this on the surface. Fortunately, in the end, he slipped out while the owner, Mr. Bakken, was not paying attention, and was rescued by Hagrid, who was looking for a potion to get rid of flesh-eating slugs. Lu Ren actually didn't really believe the reason Hagrid was looking for. Buy. Do you have to come to Knockturn Alley to buy? Hagrid was probably secretly buying some banned magical animal cubs again. Tomorrow starts volume, The Legacy of Slytherin, end of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Return to Diagon Alley, end of this volume. Everyone gathered together and returned to Gringotts as soon as Lu Ren entered the door. He saw Hermione's parents standing awkwardly by the counter that spanned the entire marble hall, waiting for Hermione to introduce them. Lu Ren was the first to say hello to Mr. and Mrs. Granger. Mr. Granger, Mrs. Granger, hello, I'm Lu Ren. The Grangers recognized Lu Ren, relaxed a little, and had a brief conversation with Lu Ren, but were immediately interrupted by Mr. Arthur. He was very excited, because the Grangers were full of feelings that he felt object of interest. Of course, Lu Ren also found an excuse for his behavior. Mr. Weasley is an avid collector, and he likes to collect all non-magical objects. This made it much easier for the Grangers to understand. They were crazy collectors after all. Lu Ren led Alice behind the Hermions, while the Weasleys and Harry were directly led by another goblin to their own underground vault. The Hermions are here to exchange galleons. Obviously, this kind of behavior is extremely disgusted by goblins. If it weren't for the Ministry of Magic's strict order to give little Muggle-born wizards a little exchange amount every semester, they would have long ago turned this pair of Muggle-born wizards who tried to exchange waste paper for gold galleons. The melons kicked out, but looked at the wizarding overseer sitting in the corner of the hall. Since being forced to sell 51% of the shares, the Ministry of Magic has set up a permanent monitoring office in Gringotts. All large-scale economic activity must be reported to the Ministry of Magic. They still suppress the irritability in their hearts. Muggle currency, huh? There was undisguised contempt in the eyes of the goblin in front of the counter. For goblins in the wizarding world, they can get as much of this kind of paper as they want. When the pound was linked to gold a century ago, the money could still be sold. Call it currency. The pound sterling is now worthless paper to the goblins. In other words, any currency that is not linked to gold is useless paper to them. Now someone wants to take gold from them with waste paper, which is very unacceptable to the goblin gaily Victor. This is the gold galleons that have been exchanged. It was about to push a small bag of gold galleons to the Grangers with a blank face. It's 50 galleons in total. Please count them. I will not be responsible for leaving the cabinet. Hermione made some calculations. This year, she will buy a set of Professor Lockhart's textbooks. The budget may not be enough, so she asked Victor Gary, "Can I exchange some more? I remember last year's can be exchanged for 70 gallon. This year's new regulations. The quota has dropped." Victor Garage rolled Hermione's eyes. "I forgot if you didn't tell me, do you have a Muggle certificate issued by the Ministry of Magic? Without this certificate, I can't exchange pounds for galleons for you." With that said, it took back the bag containing the galleon. Proof? How could there be such a certificate? Hermione was shocked. "I didn't ask for it last year." Hermione couldn't imagine that there would be such a requirement. "This kind of certificate is too humiliating. That's my colleague's negligence." According to the Ministry of Magic's 1763 promulgation of the policy for the currency exchange of hemp seed wizards, you need this certificate. Victor Garage remembered a long time no one used it, but it hadn't been abolished yet. The regulations happily moved it out. The goblins around had no intention of stopping it at all. They were all watching. There was too much bad news recently, and it was one of their few pleasures to make fun of little Muggle-born wizards. "I see." Mr. Granger walked over and took off the gold watch in his hand. "It's pure gold. It should be exchanged for some money." "Not enough." Victor Gary narrowed his eyes. Then the Grangers took down the gold necklace and the gold bracelet, but Gary Victor was not satisfied, and his eyes were fixed on the ring on Mrs. Granger's index finger. "That's enough." Luren couldn't stand it any longer. This behavior irritated him. "Mr. Granger, I have some galleons here. You can exchange them with me. I really need pounds." He grabbed the gold watch on his wrist, but how could Victor Galilei let go of the fat that came to his door? It grabbed Luren's wrist at once, and the long nails left a mark on Luren's hand. A few bloodstains. "Bastard! Someone get him out." Gary Victor began to call out to the guards, while Luren drew out his wand. Thunderbolt explosion. A scorching curse whizzed past Luren's ear, directly blasting half of Victor Garage's body to pieces. All the goblins around were stunned. It was the first time someone did such a crazy thing in Gringotts. "Someone is robbing the bank." An old goblin stood up tremblingly and shouted loudly. According to the provisions of number 1631 Guidelines of Defense of the Guidelines for the Use of Wands passed by the Wizarding Council in 14, when any magical species other than wizards actively attacks a wizard, the wizard can obtain unlimited self-defense rights. Alice shouted loudly. One word made all the approaching fairies stop. "Ridiculous. The Wizarding Council no longer exists." A goblin began to accuse. "But this law has been used to this day. You should be familiar with the third prohibition in the code. It is forbidden for people other than wizards, including house elves and goblins, to possess wands. This is still in use today." Exclamation mark. Alice's voice became stronger. These are what Alice learned from her grandpa. Her grandfather taught her since she was a child not to show any mercy to non-human magical species, but to be vigilant at all times. At the same time, she also taught her a set of rhetoric, which can keep her innocent. The goblins were speechless. When this set of guidelines was born, wizards were much more cruel than they are now. You know, wizards weren't such a good thing to begin with, and wizards' bad reputation among muggles wasn't all made up. The ancestor of the Malfoy family, Nicholas Malfoy, killed many muggle tenants in the 14s, and later attributed their deaths to the Black Death. The Wizarding Council didn't even bother to condemn The reason why medieval wizards were so cruel is also very simple. The pressure of survival is huge. They have just established their dominance in the magic world, and their relationship with the non-magic world is generally tense. They can only fight hard against the troubled times. And this set of laws has been handed down from generation to generation. Even if the Wizarding Council is replaced by the Ministry of Magic, generations of ministers of magic with different standpoints will all retain and implement this set of bills without exception. This is the legacy left by the ancestors of wizards to future generations. All the goblins fell silent. Alice was right. Even if they got into the Wizengamot, Alice would be acquitted, and the goblins couldn't even attend the sentencing. At this time, the Wheel-Eyes and Harry had finished withdrawing their money and came out of their respective underground vaults. When they returned to the hall, they happened to see this tense situation. What happened? Arthur's face was full of shock. They had only left for a few minutes. Why did there be a bloody conflict? At this time, the employees of the Ministry of Magic who were stationed here also spoke. There is indeed such a law, and just now Victor Garai really did it first. Witnesses and laws and regulations were complete, and Alice was acquitted on the spot. She and Lou Wren left the scene with the stunned Hermione family and the confused Weasley family. After understanding the ins and outs of the matter, Mr. Weasley didn't say anything, but said that these goblins were too greedy, and Mrs. Weasley patiently helped Lou Wren clean up the blood splashed on his body. After withdrawing the money, everyone has their own arrangements. Mr. Weasley insisted on inviting the Granger family to the Leaky Cauldron for a drink, while the Fred brothers got together with their friend Jordan, and the three seemed to have some tricks. Percy muttered about buying a new quill, but he blushed so unnaturally that Ron thought he had a fever. Mrs. Weasley needs to buy some second-hand school supplies for Ginny. Lou Wren bought a batch of prank toys from Fred and George while there was no one around. This was one of the few ways he could help the Wheel-Eyes. He hoped that the two older brothers could take care of their younger sister. Help Ginny as much as possible. How can a girl use second-hand goods all the time? It will make her isolated by her classmates. I hope these two live treasures can think of this. Lou Wren was going to take Alice to buy all kinds of necessities for her new semester, and Hermione, Harry, and Ron naturally went with him. Gather at Lehon bookstore in an hour, and I'll buy you textbooks, Mrs. Weasley explained, and left with Ginny. Don't go to Nocturne Alley. Otherwise, you won't be able to eat. She glanced at the backs of Fred and the three of them, and suddenly felt a little uneasy, so she added. The five of them strolled along the cobbled streets. Among the five people, Lou Wren, Harry and Alice are not short of money. The three of them can even buy a front shop directly with the cash on their bodies, so they gradually have a lot of things in their hands, ice cream, candy and various other gadgets. However, Hermione still looked sullen. A few steps behind, Lou Wren also slowed down, and moved close to Hermione's ear. A pleasant fragrance wafted directly into Lou Wren's nose. It smells so good. Whose shampoo do you use? A blush appeared on Hermione's cheeks. Duffin. If you like it, I'll give you some back. That's great. I just forgot to buy shampoo, so I'll borrow it from you. Lou Wren smiled and got to the point. Are you still feeling bad about what happened to Gringotts just now? A little bit, Hermione nodded. I didn't expect the wizarding world to be like this. I thought that only a small number of wizards would have this unfriendly attitude, but I didn't expect that there was such a relationship between goblins and wizards. A contradiction. Lou Wren spread his hands. You are a girl from a good family. You have never experienced many things. If you are from the Central Plains like me, you may be more aware of prejudice and discrimination. Is that so? Hermione's eyes widened. I have no idea. If you don't know, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Many times, people will walk on the street and suddenly ask us, do you eat dog meat or something? And some people will raise the corners of their eyes when they see us. Hidden discrimination in school and employment. As long as there is a difference, prejudice exists like a maggot attached to the bone. Hermione covered her mouth. She couldn't imagine how Lou Wren got through it. What happened to her just now was just an occasional episode in life, but for Lou Wren, it was most likely a daily occurrence. Do you still feel a little bit sorry for that goblin? Do you think it deserves death? Lou Wren asked another question. Hermione thought about it, then nodded. Then let me give you two sentences. These two sentences were summed up by the people of the Central Plains with hundreds of years of blood and tears. The first sentence is, people who are not of our race must have different hearts, and the second sentence is, if you lag behind, you must be different. Get beaten. Hermione frowned and thought about it for a while. These two sentences feel so absolute. Take the first sentence as an example. To be honest, You are also a foreign race, but I get along very well with you. Halfway through, Hermione's face began to flush again. Ren just smiled and didn't answer. Even he himself doesn't know what choice he will make if one day he is faced with a choice between national interests and personal feelings. It's fine if you don't believe me, but we have personally practiced the second sentence. Seeing that Hermione's mood recovered, Ren didn't want to go any further on this issue. He stood behind Hermione, brushed her hair, and pulled out a rubber band to tie her hair into a ponytail. Look, it's much more refreshing this way, but I only know how to wear ponytails. After finishing the work, Ren took a closer look and was very satisfied with his craftsmanship. It's okay, it's fine. Hermione lowered her hood so that Ren could not see her face clearly. Then they went shopping in Diagon Alley, and helped Alice buy the items needed for the first grade. By the way, just take that ordinary crucible. Hermione took a pure gold crucible from Alice's hand. We don't need such a luxurious crucible. Next, they stayed in front of the window of the Quidditch boutique for a while, analyzed the current situation of this year's Gryffindor competitors in the College Cup, and discussed the prospects of qualifying for the Quidditch teams they supported. Min took them to a nearby shop to buy ink and parchment. Soon, as the items on the letter were crossed out one by one, the only thing Alice wanted to buy was a pet. So have you decided what to buy? Ren asked. Can't you really buy a fire dragon or a unicorn? No matter how bad it is, a tiger can also, Alice begged, and the expressions of the other people present became weird. No. Ren firmly refused. Tiger is still possible. I can take you to try your luck. HMPH. Alice glared at Ren angrily. Then I'd better buy an owl. My family's owl is not enough because someone wrote letters to other girls during the summer vacation. How can you insult people's innocence out of thin air? Ren's eyes widened. Where did you come from? Although she said she wanted to buy an owl, Alice honestly searched for the Siberian gold gradation in the store. Unfortunately, this time there is no such pet in the Fantastic Beasts store. Disappointed, Alice can only go to the Yellow Owl shop to pick an owl that suits her. In order to make the life of the owls more comfortable, a layer of black curtain surrounds the outside of the store, which blocks most of the sunlight. There was the rustling sound of owls flapping their wings inside, and there was also a bird smell coming from the door. When Ren and the others passed by a dark owl, it suddenly flapped its wings and opened its beak, screaming, ha, ha, ha ha ha, startled Ren and the others. I'm sorry for scaring you. The clerk hurried over. These are a little strange horned owls. Their calls have been strange since they were young. Alice looked at the owl for a while and made a decision. When I passed by it, it hooted loudly. Maybe I have a relationship with it, so let it be. So in a short while, Alice had an owl cage in her hand, and inside it squatted a sensual owl that looked ordinary but was a little cute, and Harry also bought a large box of owl nuts for Hedwig here. An hour passed quickly, and they walked towards Lehun bookstore, but when they came to the door of the bookstore, they found that there were as many people as the KG Experience store that hosted UNCHN activities. A large banner was pulled out in front of the upstairs window. Gilderoy Lockhart autobiography for sale. Icon Magic 12:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Today I seem to understand why Mother only left us an hour of free time. Fred muttered to himself. We can meet Lockhart in person. Hermione exclaimed, but she immediately realized her gaffe. I mean, almost all the books on the list are written by him. Ren felt so annoyed to death. He hated the crowded flow of people, because it meant waiting and queuing. Ren, aren't you also a fan of Lockhart? You gave me a book of his for Christmas last semester. Hermione said excitedly. As soon as these words were said, Fred and the others looked at Ren's expression as if a boy found out that his brother in the same dormitory had secretly bought a fan book written by Ziokutha. Their expressions were as if they had seen a ghost. George, we have a traitor among us. What a tragedy. I think, it's a misunderstanding. Lockhart was sitting behind a desk at this moment, surrounded by large photographs of himself, all faces winking at the crowd, their dazzling white teeth gleaming. He was wearing a blue robe that resembled a forget-me-not flower, and a wizard hat with a peak tip playfully tilted on one side. It has to be said that his appearance is very good. Lockhart's blue eyes moved slightly. He saw two extraordinary people. He quickly stood up and shouted, Harry Potter. And Ren. Ha, I knew you two would come here. As he stood up, the crowd parted ways, and then Ren and Harry were grabbed by him, and he pulled them to the front. He held hands with them and took a picture, accompanied by a dazzling flash with puffs of purple smoke. The images of the three people were preserved like this. Will definitely make the headlines. Lockhart showed off his shiny teeth. It's a shame he didn't endorse toothpaste. The savior who defeated the Dark Lord and the winner of the Medal of Courage and Order of Merlin, 3rd class, and the gathering of the three of me, Lockhart. Luren wanted to escape, but couldn't, and worse things are yet to come. Ladies and gentlemen, cried Lockhart when the silence had subsided, what an extraordinary moment this is. I would like to take this wonderful occasion to make a small announcement which I has been suppressed for some days, has not said. Luren, the youngest recipient of the 3rd class of the Order of Merlin in history, is actually a fan of my book, and he even sent me a letter last year. Then he took out a letter from his pocket, the pornography written by Luren, and read it aloud. At this time, if the memory of everyone present can be erased, Luren is willing to pay any price. After reading Luren's letter, Lockhart said that such a book fan should not be let down, and then he presented Luren with a set of his own books, signed ones. After lulling Luren's enthusiasm, he changed the topic and mentioned Harry. In his mouth, Harry is naturally his book fan, and he came here today to buy his autobiography. He announced at the end, he will be the sacrifice of Hogwarts this September, the teacher of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Luren and Harry each walked out of the crowd holding Gilderoy Lockhart's complete set of works, and returned to the Wheel Eyes. No people, no faces, but don't know your heart. Fred shook Luren's shoulder. Luren. That's fake news, I've never sent such a letter. Finally, he squeezed out a sentence through his teeth. He made up his mind and categorically denied the existence of that letter. Luren. A familiar voice sounded in Luren's ear. It was Malfoy. Can you get headlines when you go into a bookstore? He joked, and you're as much a Lockhart fan as my mother. It was an accident. Luren really didn't want to continue explaining. It's too messy here, let's go out and talk about it. Draco? A hand appeared on Malfoy's shoulder. It was Lucius Malfoy. He quickly looked around the people present, and when he saw Luren, his eyes lit up. You are Luren, right? Thanks to you for taking care of Draco at school. To everyone's surprise, the notorious Lucius was quite kind today. After talking with Luren for a few words, he dragged Malfoy away, and he even invited Luren to visit his manor during the holiday. In the chaos, Luren caught a glimpse of a black notebook in Ginny's cauldron, and his heartbeat suddenly quickened. Never come again. So he held out his hand. Got it. Luren stole the black notebook without attracting other people's attention. His heart was racing like a small motor, but he still put the book into his shopping bag as expressionlessly as possible. This little trick was hardly noticed by anyone but one person. Luren's new semester is about to start. End of this volume, word chapter. Please subscribe. Happy Labor Day. End of this chapter. Chapter 204. Journey from Platform 9. Hurry up, we're going to be late. A group of people ran wildly in King's Cross Station. This is a very normal phenomenon. There are always hundreds of people who are about to miss the train every day. The situation of the Wheel Eyes is particularly complicated. In order not to attract the attention of muggles, they need to pass through the wall and enter the station pretending to be nonchalant within 5 minutes. As for why it is 5 minutes, it is naturally because there are only 5 minutes left before the departure. Although they got up as soon as the rooster crowed this morning, it was the standard wake up early, catch the late episode. They seemed to be lowered, almost making all the mistakes they could make. One time, I was in a hurry when I was about to leave. There were always things that I didn't put in the luggage, and I didn't realize that I forgot things when I drove halfway, etc. And Mrs. Weasley insisted that Arthur not turn on the airplane mode, so when they finally arrived at the train station, there was only a quarter of an hour left before the departure. But in the end Luren still caught up with the train in time. Of course, Harry and Ron were locked out of the platform without accident. Faced with this situation, the two of them had 1,000 ways to deal with it. Not surprisingly, the two of them chose the most Gryffindor way, driving directly to Hogwarts. But all of this had nothing to do with Luren, who was already in the car. Luren and Alice boarded the car very late, and there were almost no empty compartments in the car, but luckily they saw Hermione occupying the entire compartment within a few steps. Luren knocked on the door of the carriage, then pushed it open and walked in. Luren, why are you and Alice the only ones? Where are Harry and Ron? Hermione turned her attention away from the book, watched Luren put the suitcase on the luggage rack, and asked very strangely. She remembered that Luren should have set off with Harry and the others. At this moment, a whistle sounded and the train started. We almost missed the train, and everyone ran away in the end. Lu Ren shrugged his shoulders and spread his hands to express that I don't know where they are. Sit down. He wasn't telling the truth, as it would surely make Hermione anxious. Excuse me, is there still room here? Lu Ren, it's a good thing you're still free here. Two voices sounded simultaneously. Lu Ren looked outside the door. Malfoy and a girl were standing outside the door. The girl, with tousled, waist-length, dirty blonde hair, and dreamy-looking, bulging gray eyes, was clearly insane. Come in, there's still room here. Theoretically, a box can seat 6 people, but little wizards usually sit in a room for 4, so that there is a little room for snacks. After the two of them took their seats, everyone turned their attention to the strange girl in unison. After introducing each other, everyone knew that the girl's name was Luna Lovegood. Malfoy leaned back comfortably on the seat, and began to talk endlessly about his experiences during the holiday, with a strong smell of Versailles in his tone. Lu Ren was a little annoyed, and interrupted him directly. Why are you here so late? Why are you sitting with us this time? Malfoy combed his hair, and told Lu Ren that their family originally reserved enough time, but before leaving, his father found out that their house elf was missing, and was furious because of this, which resulted in a lot of delay. By the time he got into the car, the corridor was full of people, and his suitcase was in the way, so he didn't bother to look for Crabbe and Goyle. He also inadvertently mentioned that he had cast the no trace stretching charm in his box, so the box was much bigger than it looked. But then he was choked by Alice's understatement and speechless. Aren't all the boxes in the magic world engraved with a traceless stretching spell? Are there any boxes that haven't been cast? Malfoy, thank you for being there. Not long after, Lu Ren took out a set of mahjong from his box, intending to kill time with it. This deck was carved out by himself bit by bit when he was in Augustapona Castle. He explained the rules to the 4 people in the box, and the people in the box, including Alice, were all very intelligent people. After listening to it once and asking a few questions, they roughly mastered how to play mahjong. So they played mahjong happily in a group of 4, and the person who fired the gun was about to be replaced and sent to the spectator stand. Lu Ren came to show them a teaching game first, and the other 4 people understood how to play this game, and soon the box was filled with a sound of mahjong crashing. Nonsense. Malfoy pushed the card triumphantly. He was extremely lucky today, and he has already played 3 times in a row. Move your seat. It's amazing, I didn't expect Malfoy to be so lucky today. Lu Ren secretly rejoiced that he didn't play with money in these few rounds, otherwise he would lose money. When he glanced over Malfoy's mahjong, his eyes froze, and then told them not to shuffle the cards for a while. Is there a problem? Malfoy asked nervously. A pair of white boards, and then 3 chickens, 3 cakes, a bastard, 3 fives, and 2, comma. Lu Ren picked out Malfoy's cards. What's the problem? You said that as long as you make up 4, 3 of the same and a pair of 2 of the same, it's considered bullshit, and the bastard can be treated as any card. I'm fine. Malfoy said, what's the matter? Do you want to continue playing? How about I go down to rotate this time? My position may have been kissed by the goddess of luck today. Transfiguration is good. Malfoy. Lu Ren said playfully, and he took out Malfoy's 5-point card. I was almost tricked by you. Lu Ren really didn't expect that there was such a move as this. The advantage of wizards playing mahjong. The card is printed on the spot through the transfiguration technique, and then the magic power is withdrawn when the card is shuffled, and the card will naturally recover. Since you have 3 5-of-a-kind cards here, and Alice played a 5-of-a-kind card before, there shouldn't be 5 of the remaining cards. Lu Ren waved his wand, and the remaining mahjong tiles were turned over one by one. Zhang Wuxiao jumped out. For a while, there were 5 pieces of 5 pieces on the table. Malfoy smiled awkwardly but politely. He looked up out the window, and a car flashed by. He shouted in shock, I just saw a flying car outside the window. Lu Ren rolled his eyes. Don't change the subject, kid, you're suspended today. So Malfoy was kicked out of the game for cheating. A new volume has begun. Chapter 31 was wrongly divided into papers. The editor is on vacation, so I can only change it back after the vacation is over. Chapter 32 is the last chapter of the previous volume. If you want to see it, click on the catalog. It is in front of chapter 31. I was typing until 3 o'clock in the morning, and my mind was not clear. I'm sorry, I made a mistake again. End of this chapter. Chapter 205. Pull the hook. Hang yourself. 100 year, no change. The way he cheated just now is actually extremely difficult. First of all, the wizard needs to be good at transfiguration, and the fewer cards you can conjure, the better, because it will be troublesome if the cards you conjure are in other people's hands. So Malfoy waited for himself to listen before he started to use his brains, and he still turned a 4-point card into a 5-point card. Shanking is similar to I only have one card in Dowdy Zoo, and shanking means that you are about to win. But I have to say that the feng shui of Malfoy's position is really good, because being able to listen so quickly is also a kind of self. Luren still has nothing in his hand when Malfoy is playing cards. And then, Malfoy's good luck was inherited by Luren. Those who competed with Luren on the same stage were all bosses, except for Alice, who was a vegetable addict. Hermione and Luna were not easy to mess with. Luna relies on her high inspiration and can often seek advantages and avoid disadvantages, while Hermione relies on her brain to play cards and is good at analyzing the situation on the field. She can often guess the cards in their hands by analyzing the cards played by other people and their micro-expressions, which made her rarely shoot. What about Luren? He has nothing. He had a, match with these two big shots just by luck. I have to say that Mahjong is a very social game. Several people chat while playing cards, and the time passes quickly. It wasn't until the food trolley arrived that Malfoy was able to qualify to return to the card table by entertaining guests. Playing Mahjong with friends always flies by quickly, as night falls and the train arrives. Second-year students at Hogwarts do not have to go to school by boat. The custom of taking a boat is to commemorate the 4 founders. It is said that they arrived at Hogwarts in this way. Holding the oil lamp high, Hagrid called all the first-year students over. Luna and Alice bid farewell to Luren, while Luren and Hermione walked towards the school along the crowded flow of people. After walking for a short distance, Luren and Hermione followed other students to a rough and muddy path outside the station, where hundreds of horseless carriages were parked to take the little wizard to school. Luren and Hermione chose a carriage at random, and as soon as they got in, 2 girls followed in behind. It turned out to be Parvati and her good friend Lavender. Luren wanted to sit next to Hermione, but Parvati took the seat next to Hermione first, so Luren could only sit with Lavender. There was a faint musty and straw smell in the carriage, so Luren opened the window of the carriage to let in the cool fresh air from outside. When they closed the door, the carriage started to move by itself, bumping and shaking forward in the procession. This carriage can move without a horse. Hermione was a little surprised. Is this the legendary alchemy creation? Luren looked at the empty space in front of the carriage, and said, "The Thestrals are pulling the carriage, a magical creature that can only be seen by those who have witnessed and understood death." This topic was a bit heavy, and the entire carriage fell into silence. Only the creaking sound of the wheels rolling over the ground came in from the window. After a while the carriage drove up to 2 imposing wrought iron gates, flanked by stone pillars and crowned by winged boars. Hermione poked her head out of the small car window, watching the many turrets and towers getting closer to them. Finally, the carriage staggered to a stop, and Parvati and Lavender got out of the carriage one after another. Luren followed Hermione, quietly took Hermione's hand, and stayed in the carriage with her temporarily. Lavender wanted to go with Luren, but was pushed away from Luren by the young wizards who got off the car around her. She could only look back at herself and Luren getting further and further away with a resentful expression. After the little wizards around had almost left, Luren jumped out of the carriage. "What's the rush? There were so many people just now," Luren said happily to Hermione, breathing in the fresh, slightly cool air. "I don't like crowded places." "I don't like it either," Hermione said with a smile covering her mouth. "Although I can't see the Thestrals, I guess they can be touched. Do you want to confirm the existence of Thestrals?" Luren looked at Hermione and said. Hermione still hesitated. Thestrals are magical animals after all. Can they really be touched at will? Looking at the empty front of the car, she felt a little uneasy in her heart at this time. Luren had already put his left hand on the Thestral's body, and the touch was icy cold. The Thestral's skin gave a hard feeling, and they seemed to have no flesh and blood, and there were bones under the skin. Luren gently held Hermione's hand, and then gently pressed her hand to the Thestral's body. The new touch made Hermione's eyes widen, and the heartbeats of both of them began to speed up. They were excited, and they were nervous. The 2 of them remained motionless. The voices of the little wizards gradually faded away, and gradually only the wind was left around. After a while, Hermione quietly retracted her hand. "It's getting late. Let's go to school too. Don't miss the branch," she suggested to Luren, and then she took Luren's arm and rushed to the castle. There were almost no people on the small road on campus, only the lights and the noise of people in the distance. Luren liked this atmosphere very much. During my vacation, I read the ancient book Mosey in the Central Plains. There is a sentence in it that I don't understand very well. There are people here today who give up their beautiful clothes, but there are short brown ones next door that they want to steal. Can you translate it for me? Hermione thought for a long time, and finally asked such a sentence. Luren understood immediately. Did you see it that day? Hermione nodded. Why? Why did you take that black book? This matter is too dangerous. I'm afraid you won't be able to grasp it, because the water here is very deep. The water is very deep, so you can't grasp it, so you went to wade in the water and grasp it yourself. Hermione held Luren back. We are friends, and friends should help each other. Luren looked at Hermione. He really didn't want Hermione and the others to be involved in Voldemort and his Horcruxes too early. If possible, he hoped that they could have a good time, at least until after the 3rd grade. He hoped that with the efforts of himself and Dumbledore, the two of them would solve Voldemort quietly. But it seems to be impossible now. If he doesn't tell, how long can he hide it under Hermione's persistent investigation? How much will Hermione unearth? Okay. After a while, Luren made up his mind. You keep it secret for now, and I will definitely give you an explanation. Hook. Hermione stared into Luren's eyes. Okay. Luren was amused by this childish behavior. He stretched out his little finger to hook Hermione's little finger together. Hook. Hang yourself. 100 years. Don't change. End of this chapter. Chapter 206. Only Dumbledore's Wounded World is complete. Hermione and Luren were almost the last batch of students to enter the auditorium. Filch at the entrance of the auditorium could not wait to swallow these two little guys alive with his eyes. When Luren entered, the 4 long tables were already full of people. He and Hermione quickly sat down at the end of the Gryffindor long table at this time. The freshmen had already entered in a long line, and Ginny and Alice were among them. Their red hair and silver hair were extremely conspicuous. The freshmen were trembling and frightened as in previous years. It seemed that the tradition of the wizarding world was still going on. This year's sorting ceremony was slightly different from previous years. Snape did not appear in the teacher's table, and as the head of Slytherin, he was absent from the sorting ceremony for the first time. Of course, Professor Lockhart wore a very eye-catching aqua green robe, adding a touch of bright color to the teacher's bench, which can be regarded as a change. Strange, why didn't I see Harry and the others? Hermione whispered from the side. However, the branch started under the auspices of Professor McGonagall, and a very thin gray-haired boy walked onto the rostrum. The line got shorter and shorter, and it was Alice's turn to go up. When Alice came onto the stage, the whole school was silent for a moment. Her lovely and exquisite face won the favor of most people. She put the hat on her head and muttered something. The sorting hat has yet to come to a conclusion. Luren was very surprised. He thought Alice would be assigned to Gryffindor instantly. Suddenly, a sudden change occurred. Alice stood up, tore off her hat, and threw it on the stool. At the same time, she drew out her wand, pointed to the sorting hat and said, I warn you, there can only be one and only one in my college today. That's Hufflepuff. The students in the hall made an uproar like cold water being poured into a frying pan, and Professor McGonagall's expression froze. Your behavior is very Gryffindor. Dumbledore also felt dizzy before his eyes. This familiar feeling was really like the feeling Luren had when he entered school last year. He thought that Luren had restrained a lot in 1 year and could have a more relaxed school year, but he didn't expect. There are chasing soldiers in front, and interceptions in the back. Dumbledore felt his chest constrict. Luren's eyes were also darkened. Who would have thought that this guy could do such a thing? Miss Alice, please put away your wand. Professor McGonagall made a futile dissuasion. I've already put on the sorting hat, and I trust the judgment of the hat. Let it make a decision. Alice can be said to be confident. She has gone through the prescribed process, and she is only helping the hat to make up her mind. Professor McGonagall pondered for a while, and felt that what Alice said was somewhat reasonable, so she decided to let the sorting hat make a decision. Sorting hat, don't feel pressured, speak out your decision loudly. At this time, the sorting hat was slumped in the four-corner stool, motionless, as if it had lost its magic and dreams, but pretending to be dead is useless. All eyes on it, and it must give an answer. Miss Alice, you have such extraordinary courage, and you are so talented in attacking magic. How about? Alice interrupted the sorting hat's words, and moved her face closer to the sorting hat. Look at my face, don't I look like a Hufflepuff student? This face, I'm afraid. Please take another look. I'm good at cooking. A little red light appeared on the tip of Alice's wand. Hufflepuff. Feeling the amazing magic power, the Sorting Hat made a decision. Anyway, the little wizards who have been difficult to choose for thousands of years can be thrown into Hufflepuff. Where's the place to obey the adjustment? The audience was in an uproar. This was the first time in the history of Hogwarts that someone chose a house by force. For Alice, the Hufflepuff lounge is in a unique location, adjacent to the kitchen, and 8 floors away from the Gryffindor Tower. The place that we can reach is our own promised land. When I went to Hufflepuff, it was like the sea is wide enough for fishes to leap, the sky is high for birds to fly. It was difficult for Lou-Ren to restrain her. Alice entered Hufflepuff as she wished, and the kind little badgers also expressed a warm welcome to this beautiful but somewhat reckless little girl. After all, Hufflepuff is a very inclusive college, and this little girl, that strong desire to be in Hufflepuff, also won over most Hufflepuff students. This is the first time anyone has offered to go to Hufflepuff. There was also a burst of applause from the tables of Gryffindor College. In the eyes of the little lions of Gryffindor, Alice was an out-and-out Gryffindor. They were never so reckless back then, wearing a yellow robe. The heart is still the heart of a lion. Lou-Ren also quickly got out of the dazed state. He suddenly found out, what does it have to do with Alice going to another academy? I am the beneficiary. Why should I panic? Make a lot of money yourself. If I were in Gryffindor, I would have to wipe Alice's ass twice in 3 days and clean up the mess she left behind. But when she went to Hufflepuff, I could fish. Although he promised to take care of her, he was out of reach. The only thing that causes headaches is probably. Lou-Ren looked at the old man on the teacher's bench, and suddenly felt very happy. As expected, his own happiness often had to be based on the pain of others. Only Dumbledore's wounded world is complete. After the sorting ceremony, Snape returned to the teacher's seat and whispered to Dumbledore for a while. Then Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall left the teacher's seat in a hurry. Lou-Ren could see Dumbledore even from a long distance away. The helpless look on Leto's face. And Hermione finally confirmed the fact that Harry and Ron were absent from the opening ceremony. This made her not eat well for the next dinner, and she kept thinking, what should I do, how to do it? When the banquet was over, she was still out of her mind, and finally she and Lou-Ren stayed outside the Gryffindor lounge, waiting for Harry and Ron. In the usual way, driving a flying cart to school, and finally crashing headfirst into the Whomping Willow will definitely become a hot news in the school and get everyone's hot discussion. But few people even noticed the absence of Harry and Ron today, and everyone's attention was drawn away by Alice. Lou-Ren and the others also waited for Harry and the others outside the lounge. After learning that they would not be expelled, but would only be fined and confined, Hermione finally felt relieved. After giving them both a good lecture, Ron directly commented on the lecture as exactly the same as Professor McGonagall. Hermione let them go, but when she calmed down, her stomach growled uncontrollably. However, Lou-Ren promptly took out a pre-packed sandwich from his robe and handed it to Hermione. Lou-Ren, yeah, v. End of this chapter, chapter 207. When Harry came to the auditorium the next day, he received a big surprise. Mrs. Weasley sent them a howling letter. But for this letter, the other little wizards' attitudes were completely beyond their imagination. After Mrs. Weasley's shouts resounded through the auditorium, the little wizards were not in a state of watching the excitement at all. But someone drove a flying cart to the school yesterday. And Harry and Ron were absent yesterday. Opening ceremony. What shocked them even more was that Harry and Ron even appeared in the Evening Prophet, occupying a huge space. As soon as everyone opened the evening paper, they could see a moving picture of a Ford passing through the air. I know how these reporters filmed it. So the painting style started to crooked. Before Ron could blush, Lee Jordan was on his feet, exclaiming, "Brilliant! What a marvel! What a wonderful way! The boys and girls have been talking about it for years." Fred shouted from a distance, "You should send me an owl mail, so that if I jump off the train, I will go with you." A fifth-year student sitting next to Harry, who had never spoken to Harry, patted Harry on the back and said he was a good guy, and countless Gryffindor students followed suit. Lou-Ren just wanted to say, as expected of Gryffindor. Hermione's face hardened instantly. The lively atmosphere in Gryffindor didn't stop until Professor McGonagall called out names and criticized them in the auditorium. She angrily called out the names of the most active people, but when she tried to deduct points, she found that there were no points to deduct at all. Exclamation mark. Today is the first day of school, and the first class has not been attended yet. Where do you get the marks? So the few people they booed were changed to confinement. Lurent suddenly remembered something. Ron, is your wand broken? Ron, who was still a little flustered, suddenly collapsed. He took out a wand wrapped with magic tape and handed it to Lurent. The wand seemed to have a serious problem, because it would crackle uncontrollably. Noise, sparks. It was hard for Lurent to imagine how Ron could pass the exam with such a magic wand. Ron, who can pass the test like this, must be very good at casting spells. Lurent thought for a while, then took out his wand, and put it on the table. I have 2 wands, I can lend you one. You can try and see which one is more suitable for you. But the words just fell, one of them turned slightly, and pushed the other towards Ron. The one who was pushed was unwilling to fly back to Lurent's hand. Ron. None of them seemed to be very suitable. Lurent felt dizzy for a while, and he could only carefully remove the tape from Ron's wand. Wand damage was bad, but not that bad. Its wooden shell was almost broken in 2, but the unicorn tail hair core inside was not damaged much. Lurent carefully put his wands together, and then pushed them back. He wasn't very good at restoration charms, but he felt that this wand could help because the most important core inside is not damaged, just like a mobile phone, only the screen is broken, but if the inside is not damaged, it is still easy to repair. I suggest you go to Professor McGonagall. Lurent gave the most reliable suggestion. You are her student, and she will not just sit idly by. Think about it. You have been punished for confinement, and she still. What can I do to you? Hurry up and find her while the academy is still at 0. Wands are indeed repairable with the blessing of the Elder Wand. Harry's broken wand can be repaired by Harry himself. Professor McGonagall, as a master of transfiguration, cannot fail to repair a shell. Ron went to see Professor McGonagall now, and he was reprimanded, and it passed after he endured it. At worst, he would write an inspection and extend the confinement time. It would be better than using this scrapped wand for a semester. Remember, you must be sincere in admitting your mistakes. Lurent continued to encourage. Ron hesitated. He looked at his wand, then at Professor McGonagall, who was slowly eating pickled herring on the teacher's bench, thought twice, gritted his teeth and stomped his feet, and made up his mind. After the breakfast time was over, Ron and Harry stopped Professor McGonagall, who was about to leave the auditorium. Ron really couldn't muster the courage to face her alone, and then explained his purpose. Professor McGonagall was stunned for a moment. This was the most outrageous request she had ever heard in her many years of teaching. However, she still agreed to try to restore Ron's wand. After all, he is a cub of his own academy, so he can't just sit idly by, right? Seeing Professor McGonagall agreeing from a distance, Lurent also left the auditorium in peace. Professor McGonagall is very much like his head teacher in elementary school. Although his face has always been serious, he's extremely reliable when encountering various problems. Wand science is an extremely profound subject. I don't guarantee that I can fix it for you, Mr. Weasley. Professor McGonagall gave Ron a shot first, but when she saw Ron's wand, she still breathed a sigh of relief. This level of damage can still be repaired by herself. Restored as before. Under the master level restoration spell, Ron's wand became brand new, and even the traces of previous wear and tear disappeared. Ron picked up the wand and tried it. Although the spell was not released as smoothly as before, it could still be used normally. What surprised him even more was that Professor McGonagall didn't make things difficult for him, and just waved him away. He ran out of the castle in a flash, and went to the first lesson of school. The first lesson for second-year wizards is herbal medicine with Hufflepuff. However, today was slightly different from the herbal medicine class in the past. Professor Sprout was very rarely late. Sprout's lateness was even rarer than Snape's not making things difficult for Gryffindor students in potions class. Soon, when Lurent saw Professor Sprout striding across the lawn with Gilderoy Lockhart at his side, he guessed the reason. Professor Sprout's complexion is obviously not very good today. Just now, Professor Lockhart insisted on treating the Whomping Willow, who was injured by Harry and the others, but in the end, the Whomping Willow was directly driven into a berserk state, which made her strenuous. It took a lot of effort to complete the repair work. Sprout, who regards simplicity as his beauty, had always disliked Lockhart, who wore fancy clothes every day, and now he hated him to the extreme. But Lockhart obviously didn't feel her thoughts, and was still in high spirits. He greeted the students and boasted about his work in restoring the Whomping Willow. When Lockhart let Harry and Lurent out of the classroom, she almost burst into anger, but in the end she managed to control her anger. End of this chapter, chapter 208. Today's Lockhart is still very flamboyant. He is spotless from head to toe. He wears a turquoise top hat with a gold rim on top of his shiny blonde hair and a flowing turquoise robe. Among the male teachers, the appearance can be ranked among the top 3. He took Lou Ren and Harry outside the greenhouse, and then smiled what he thought was charming. Harry, I really didn't expect you to have such a good idea. His expression was like he was just as excited when he found the people in the same way. Why didn't I think of it back then? It's a pity to drive a cart to Hogwarts. If you told me in advance, you would definitely be on the headlines of the Daily. Lockhart had a regretful look on his face. Think about it, Lockhart travels in a speeding car, and around Great England. What a good theme these are. Lou Ren finally understood that this guy wanted to grab the headlines, and wanted them to bring him the next time they did something. In Lockhart's eyes, both Lou Ren and Harry are like-minded people who like to show off and are good at hype. Then, if Lockhart and these two people bind and promote together, wouldn't it be possible to become the top of the magic world? So this time he came to seek cooperation. In Lockhart's eyes, he has a fan base and is also an old-timer, and he is really sincere if he is willing to bind and promote together. Professor, I have always admired your courage, Lou Ren said suddenly. Lockhart laughed, and was about to flatter each other, but he didn't expect that what Lou Ren said next made his hair stand on end. The things you wrote in your book before, I don't think it's a big deal, but your willingness to be a professor of defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts surprised me. You are a real warrior. Lockhart, what? The position of defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts is a position cursed by the Dark Lord. Lou Ren's eyes widened. The Dark Lord always wanted to be the defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts when he was young, but it didn't work out. In the end, the Dark Lord cursed the position in a fit of rage, and since then, no defense against the dark arts teacher has been teaching for more than a year, and many of them ended up miserable. Lockhart? Exclamation mark. Last year's teacher was killed by Harry himself. Although he deserved what he deserved, he also deserved the Dark Lord's curse, so I really admire you, Professor, for taking over this job. Lou Ren was extremely excited. Talking endlessly about the gossip news he heard, he didn't seem to notice that Lockhart's face gradually became strange. Okay, kids, you should go back to class. Lockhart interrupted Lou Ren. I still have something to do, so I'm leaving first. After finishing speaking, he hurried to the library. He needed to look up some information. Lou Ren and Harry returned to the greenhouse, and Professor Sprout had been waiting for them. She is standing behind a stool. On the stool were about 20 pairs of earmuffs of different colors. After the two sat down next to Hermione, she began to give a lecture. Our task today is to repot the mandrake. Harry, Lou Ren, who of you two can tell me the characteristics of the mandrake? Mandrake, a powerful recovery agent. It is a herb that can restore people who have been deformed or cursed, and its leaves have other magical uses. But it is also extremely dangerous. Heard mandrake, the cries of the Draco kill a man. Exactly right. Add 20 points to Gryffindor. Now that you have points, you should pay attention to it, and don't let Professor McGonagall deduct it. Professor Sprout said, and opened a little by the way joke. But don't worry, the mandrakes in the school's greenhouse are still very young, and the crying is not fatal. At most, it will make you unconscious. After a brief introduction to the mandrake, she gave each little wizard a pair of earmuffs. After everyone put on the earmuffs, Professor Sprout brought over a deep plate with a green belt on it. Purple seedlings. She seized the seedling, and with a vigorous lift, pulled out a monstrously ugly baby, which she then transplanted into a large flower pot. Seeing this scene, Lou Ren couldn't help thinking of the legend of the ginseng doll in the Central Plains. If a mandrake can live for hundreds of thousands of years, will it eventually become a talking elf? Huh? A muffled hum came from the bottom of Lou Ren's heart, and it turned out to be Noble. This cry really annoys the dragon. The cry of the mandrake obviously made Norbert a little uncomfortable. Of course, it is impossible to let a dragon cry to death with a cry alone, but this sound is also like decoration. The noise is just as annoying to it. Professor Sprout took off the earmuffs only after the seedlings were completely buried in the soil. Then she asked the little wizards to repot the mandrake in groups of 4. When Lou Ren started to add fertilizer to the flower pot, Noble spoke again. This fertilizer, if I guessed correctly, is the poop of the fire dragon. Lou Ren, can you go up and smell it? So maybe we can tell what kind of fire dragon feces it is. Lou Ren's face darkened. If you talk too much, I'll go to the library to look up information on how to block the perception of summoned beasts. Now he feels that it was a wrong decision for Norbert to share his sensory organs with him. Many things seem simple but are difficult to do. Some videos of big guys beating a wolf without injury seem like I can do it a few times, but only the actual hands know what the malice of an old thief is. When Professor Sprout just changed the pot, he was as easy and comfortable as transplanting aloe vera, but you can only know how difficult this thing is when you try it yourself. It neither wants to come out nor go in, and the twisting and turning is very annoying. Headache. And Harry was extremely unlucky. The doll he pulled out was a bit bigger than the others, and it took them a full 10 minutes to stuff it into the basin. However, once they were born and seconded, they went a lot smoother the second time, and the key lies in a fast word and a hole first, then pull it out at once while the grass is not paying attention, and then throw it in when it is confused. Before the end of Get Out of Class, Lou Ren even developed a way that he had never imagined. He directly put the deep-bottomed plate in the flower pot, and then dug away the old soil bit by bit, leaving only a small part. Cut the plate in half, pump it again, and the mandrake falls into the new manure, and finally restore the plate to the original one. However, they didn't dare to do more with this method of skipping classes. They just took a pot for experimentation. A little time was thoughtfully reserved between the herbal class and the transformation class, allowing the students to return to the castle to take a shower, and to meet the most difficult class in the cleanest state. Harry sometimes wondered if the transfiguration knowledge in his head had flowed away with the water. End of this chapter. Chapter 209. Hermione, lend me your socks. Sure enough, the transfiguration in the second grade was a level more difficult in the first class. Professor McGonagall asked them to turn a beetle into a button. The beetle ran around avoiding the wand, causing the little wizard's spells to miss repeatedly. In Ron's rage, a powerful spell stabbed the beetle. Of course, fortunately, there was a more violent explosion at Seamus Finnegan's place after a while, which made Ron's face pale. It looks a lot better after lunch. There was still a while before the afternoon class. Lou Ren decided to fulfill his promise. He took Hermione to the abandoned dormitory where Fat Tiger was raised, and spread out the black diary. The paper of the black diary was a little yellowed. If Lou Ren hadn't had Guts' perspective, he would have thought this diary was an ordinary second-hand diary. "Hey, Tom, I'm coming in." He motioned Hermione not to make a sound, then picked up the quill, dipped in the ink, and wanted to write his name in the diary, but a famous anime came to his mind, so he gave up with this idea in mind. "I wrote a Sudamai Samachuang instead." The diary does not respond. Lou Ren was a little confused. It shouldn't be. How could this happen? Are you testing me? He wrote another sentence. "I long for power. I want to be stronger." The handwriting remains on the paper. Lou Ren gritted his teeth. "Good you, Tom. You don't want to drink a toast." Lou Ren was very sure that this was Tom's Horcrux. There was only such a black diary in Ginny's cauldron that day, and Lucius Malfoy was also there, so it was a real hammer. Just don't know why Tom is avoiding himself. Could it be that Voldemort's Horcruxes can perceive good and evil in people? Hermione looked a little confused, so she didn't understand what Lou Ren was doing. Lou Ren glanced at Hermione and took a deep breath. "Hermione, I have something to trouble you." Lou Ren blushed slightly. "Can you lend me your socks?" "Hermione, huh?" Her face also turned red. Why do you want this all of a sudden?" But she still took off her little leather shoes, revealing gray stockings. The soft gray socks were stretched on her fair calf. The upper end of the sock was slightly tightened to set off the tight curve of the calf. The color of the toe part was slightly darker, and the toes were slightly raised. Hermione's whole face was completely red. She bent down, which brought her closer to Lou Ren, and the fragrance of her bath liquid penetrated into Lou Ren's nostrils. Hermione put her hand on the sock, gently took off the sock, and handed it to Lou Ren with trembling hands. Lou Ren took over the warm stockings, which had no patterns on them and the stitches were very ordinary. He thanked him, then picked up the student shoes that Hermione had taken off, and put them on for her. Hermione's delicate and lovely bare feet are as soft and beautiful as the sculpture of Erido, the goddess of Muse, held in Lou Ren's hand. It feels soft and cold to the touch, and can be held in one hand and played with carefully. Lou Ren gently butted the little brown leather shoes with Hermione's feet, and the two fit together. Hermione, who had never experienced this before, was a little sensitive. She opened her mouth slightly and let out a soft exclamation, as if Lou Ren was not touching her feet, but her heart. But when Lou Ren let go of her hand, her heart that seemed to be squeezed just now seemed to be let go, and her heart was empty. "Be careful of catching a cold." Lou Ren put Hermione's shoes on, and then approached the diary with the socks. No taste, only a faint aroma. Holding the tip of his sock in one hand and the barrel of the sock in the other, Lu Ren stood in front of the diary. Tom, if you don't respond to me again, I'll put this sock in the book. Lu Ren threatened. This behavior is like letting Hermione step on Voldemort's face. How could Voldemort be such a character? Accept this humiliation? But there was still no response from the diary. Don't cry if you don't see the coffin. Lu Ren hung his socks a few centimeters above the diary. Could it be possible that the mighty Dark Lord likes this tune? The handwriting on the diary was not even blurred at all. Lu Ren stuck the socks on, and waited for Riddle's angry phantom to appear. But nothing happened. Noble. Lu Ren didn't want to get involved with Tom anymore. He took the sock out of the diary, and then summoned his fire dragon after singing. Noble's huge body filled the whole room. Lu Ren put the diary in Noble's mouth. He remembered that Noble's teeth were also poisonous. Bite it. Lu Ren ordered. Noble obediently bit it hard, and his fangs pierced through the diary, but there was no mysterious phenomenon like black blood at all, and Lu Ren's face became ugly. If this diary is just an ordinary notebook, then what did his behavior just now count? Noble, breathe fire. Under the breath of the dragon, the diary turned into flying ashes. Lu Ren took Noble back and sat next to Hermione. Hermione's eyes wandered a little at this time, but she quickly regained her composure on the surface. Did you just mention the Dark Lord? That diary. Lu Ren shook his head slightly. This year's Hogwarts is destined not to be very peaceful. So you missed it. Hermione looked calm, but there was always a tinge of pink on her cheeks. Yes. Lu Ren didn't want to hide anything. Neither of them spoke any more. Suddenly, Hermione jumped up. It's over, it's over. Defense against the dark arts is about to start. She ran to the door in 3 steps at a time, opened it and ran out. When Lu Ren ran into the classroom, Lockhart was already standing on the podium, and Hermione was uncharacteristically sitting in the corner of the last row of the classroom. Harry and some young wizards who didn't like Lockhart were also sitting in the back half of the classroom, with books stacked high on the desk. Come in, Lu Ren. It's a good thing you didn't miss the most exciting part. Lockhart greeted, and asked Lu Ren to find a seat for himself, and Lu Ren sat next to Hermione without hesitation. I, Gilderoy Lockhart, RD class of the Order of Merlin, honorary member of the Defense Against the Dark Arts, 5-time winner of the Most Charming Smile Award from Wizards Weekly. Why don't you sit in the front? Lu Ren noticed that Hermione was a little absent-minded while Lockhart was making the opening remarks, so he asked softly in her ear. Hermione gave Lu Ren a hard look, and said to Lu Ren in a voice not much louder than the sound of the mosquito, "You still ask me why? How dare I? You pay me back." Lu Ren glanced at it out of the corner of his eye, and suddenly realized Hermione was bare on one leg at this time, but she was still wearing a sock on the other leg. Although it was covered by a wide wizard robe, there was always a flash of flesh color when the hem fluttered. So, why don't you take off the other one? Tried something new? Vote if you like it, subscribe, if the feedback is good, then. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210. Hermione's face turned red when she heard it, and she punched Lu Ren hard. Just say it if you don't want to, Hermione said in a low voice. If it wasn't about the Dark Lord, Hermione felt that Lu Ren must have lied to her. After all, his behavior just now was too suspicious. The conscience of heaven and earth, Lu Ren really didn't have such an idea. What bad thoughts could little Lu Ren in the 2nd grade have, although he is already a boy who can go to the 2nd year of junior high? Hermione narrowed her eyes slightly. She felt that even with the Dark Lord as an excuse, Lu Ren still needs to be educated. The little wizard who dared to ask for a girl's socks directly and did such a thing was no longer an ordinary little wizard. To punch hard. For Lu Ren, Hermione decided to take the initiative. The best defense is to attack. So she suppressed the throbbing in her heart, took a few deep breaths, and the blush on her face quickly dissipated. She glanced at Lu Ren, raised one foot, and rubbed lightly on Lu Ren's calf. Then she approached Lu Ren and whispered in his ear, "Here, why don't you help me take off the other one?" Lu Ren, Lu Ren felt that he was on the top. His blood pressure was soaring. How had he ever seen such a scene? His face was redder than the Philosopher's Stone, his mind was blank, and his heart was beating faster than an airplane engine. Hermione could not help being very satisfied when she found that she seemed to hit a critical blow with just one sentence, but she didn't dare to go any further. She was really afraid that Lou Ren would help her take off her socks in front of the students from the two colleges. She gently kicked off the shoes on her feet, then rolled off the socks, and then she suddenly wanted to play a prank, so she rolled the socks into a ball and stuffed them into the pocket of Lou Ren's robe. Lou Ren stopped thinking. Hermione found that it was really cool to take the initiative to attack. At this time, Lockhart's self-introduction on the stage has come to an end. Children, I once said in my book that no one knows more about curses than I do. The Curse of Defense Against the Dark Arts? What a good subject. I might use it as a title for my next book, like What is a Year with a Curse? But here comes the question that bothers me. I may only be a teacher for a year. Many young wizards in the audience suddenly let out disappointed voices. There is no way. My journey is not over yet. There are countless adventures waiting for me in the world. However, if I leave in a year, wouldn't it just happen to be cursed? After finishing speaking, he laughed loudly when he got up. The little wizards in the audience also laughed, and the classroom was full of joy. Feeling that the atmosphere was almost over, Lockhart restrained his smile. Okay, I see that you all bought my books, so let's do a small quiz today. Don't worry, just to see how you read. How much have you understood? Lockhart suddenly distributed a paper to each little wizard, and started a preliminary test. Lockhart is still confident now. Lou Ren's words startled him in the morning, but after he went to check the information on the Defense Against the Dark Arts professors of the past generations, he found that although the professors change every year, the death rate seems to be not that high. They just left their posts for various reasons. Lockhart managed to convince himself, he can only hypnotize himself. There is no turning back arrow after opening the bow, so he can't go back on his word, but things have to be prepared. Lockhart decided to pick up the Fallon spells starting today. He believed that the ice-snow-smart Lockhart could handle all of this with a little effort. He hadn't paid much attention to this aspect in the past. To be honest, it is very intimidating for a teacher to take a basic test in the first class. Many teachers can instantly establish their prestige through the test, but Lockhart's test question obviously had the opposite effect. Lou Ren glanced at the paper. It read, Gilderoy Lockhart has countless works. Which one is he most satisfied with? How many months has his work topped the bestseller list? What did Gilderoy Lockhart use to catch a ghoul? Gilderoy Lockhart once made a vampire no longer drink blood, but what to eat instead? When is Gilderoy Lockhart's birthday? What's his ideal birthday present? There are 54 questions in total. After reading these questions, Lou Ren couldn't help rubbing his forehead. It's really outrageous that his mother opened the door for Outrageous, and Outrageous is home. Lockhart, if he taught the class honestly and step by step, without doing too many fancy operations, it might take a long time for the little wizards to discover his true face. Even if he keeps a low profile, most of the professors will be kept in the dark by him. After all, there will be basically no head-to-head conflicts between professors. Lockhart can be said to be a unique skill brother, who can become the king with one or two heroes all the way, but when Waddy is good at his band, the essence of bronze is fully exposed. Lockhart has two unique skills. One is the Oblivion Curse, and the other is the ability to fool. Thinking about how many powerful wizards have overturned under his hands, one knows that this guy is definitely a talent in a certain sense. Sadly, Lou Ren found that he seemed to know the answers to all these questions, because he had read every book by Lockhart. After all, the stories inside are all true, and there is really a lot of useful knowledge in these books. So when Ron and Harry, who were frowning, looked over, they saw Lou Ren and Hermione writing hard. I can confirm that the letter was really written by Lou Ren. He is definitely a 10-year-old fan of Lockhart. Ron said with a heavy heart. I really hate this guy, Harry said. Looking at Lockhart, the wizard in front of him made him feel disgusted out of instinct, although he had countless great adventures. Soon, Lou Ren and Hermione finished filling out the questionnaire. Lou Ren felt that with his actions, it seemed that the head of Lockhart's true fan was becoming more and more difficult to remove. He had seriously considered whether to deliberately answer a few questions wrong, but before he could make up his mind, the time was up, and Lockhart collected the test paper and corrected it on the spot. Tisk tisk, there are still many people who know that my book has topped the bestseller list for 6 consecutive months, which makes me very relieved, but the first half of this question is a bit off. Ghouls is the book I am most satisfied with. Several classmates want to read this book carefully. Again, I spend a lot of space in the book describing how I caught a man with a tea strainer. Only for ghouls. He took out 2 papers, turned them over and looked at them. Great, points. Where are Mr. Lou Wren and Miss Hermione Granger? Hermione raised a trembling hand, and by the way, raised Lou Wren's hand as well. End of this chapter. Chapter 211. The Basilisk Awakens. Aha! Lockhart yelled, making Lou Wren almost think that he was going to shoot a fireball in the next moment. Excellent people will always attract each other, Lockhart said, pointing to Hermione and Lou Wren. Lou Wren is also my old fan. I am not surprised that he can give a full score, but there is a second person it's too unexpected to get a point without deduction. 20 points for Gryffindor. Ron and Harry were caught in a tangle. Lockhart is quite annoying, but he is really generous with bonus points. He gave too much? And they suddenly realized a problem through this preliminary examination. The subject of this professor is likely to be very easy to pass. If you write a lot of flattery touting Lockhart on the test paper, it may be enough to pass the mark. Once this joint was figured out, Ron immediately felt that this guy was much more pleasing to the eye. Next, Lockhart's session turned into a disaster. He took out a cage of Cornish elves and let them out. Before that, Seamus Finnegan thought these elves were a joke, but in the next moment Lockhart personally let him know who was the joke. After these elves came out of the cage, they ran around the room like rockets, and the whole classroom became a mess. Lockhart couldn't help but be very proud when he saw the students running away with their heads in their arms. Look at them, gather them up, they are just a group of elves, pesca pixie pesternomi. Lou Wren was dumbfounded when he heard this spell. Can this thing really be called a spell? Pesky means hateful, the second half is pixie, which means elf or mischievous, pester means entanglement, no means negation, me is no. One is a pronoun, so the whole mantra adds up to don't bother me, you nasty troublemaker. If this spell is really useful, then Lou Wren feels that he has discovered a new world. Then can I do some kind of spell like mirror, tell me? But Lockhart's spell did not have any effect, and he was even disarmed by the elf. The wizards were disarmed by the Cornish elves, which was even more shocking than Italy's disastrous defeat to Ethiopia. Finally, with Hermione's help, he got all the elves back into their cages, but obviously, this performance did not shake Lockhart's position in Hermione's heart. She thought it was an opportunity for her to practice. For the next few days, Harry was trouble. The source of trouble is Gilderoy Lockhart, who has always wanted to gain fame from Harry, and a little fan of Harry. Colin Creevey. He is a photographer and takes his camera with him wherever he goes, and his favorite thing is to take pictures of Harry and invite him to sign them. Of course, it is also one of his pleasures to say hello and get responses from Harry every day. But after the first Quidditch training, Harry had one more headache. Oliver Woody decided to take advantage of this year's arena to practice well with his team members. Obviously, a championship is not enough to satisfy his appetite. So at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, Harry and Lou Wren were woken from the bed by Wood. This is simply devoid of conscience. But apart from this trivial matter, there was nothing abnormal in other respects. Even Alice, who made an earth-shattering move at the opening ceremony, did not make any more troubles. Hogwarts enjoyed a rare few days of peace. The day of the day, of course, the Gryffindor and Slytherin Quidditch teams had a little conflict over the training ground, but it was obviously not a problem. In Lou Wren's eyes, the most urgent thing is to find Voldemort's diary, but all he knew now was that the diary was indeed at Hogwarts, because Dobby blocked the platform on the first day of the term to prevent Harry from going to school. But in whose hands? He has no idea at all. He can't look for it from bedroom to bedroom. Right, being discovered will really lead to social death. The bad news finally came. Harry told Lou Wren after being fined and confinement that he heard strange words in Lockhart's office, and Lou Wren knew immediately. The basilisk was out of the cage. This undoubtedly cast a cloud over his mood. Voldemort was rapidly regaining his strength, but he could do nothing about it. Sure enough, when Voldemort honestly used ordinary items to make Horcruxes, it would double the difficulty of finding them. This feeling was finally relieved by Hagrid, because he finally caught a clue after a training that almost squeezed all the juice out of people. Several people finally found time to visit Hagrid. The moment he walked into Hagrid's hut, Lou Wren locked his eyes on Hagrid's table, where there was a rooster that had half its feathers pulled out, and Lou Wren showed a happy smile. Seeing Lou Wren's smiling face, Hagrid also laughed. Lou Wren, you are still so greedy. But this one is not good. It was killed by some kind of creature, you know. In the Forbidden Forest there are always some weird creatures. I'm not sure if I can eat them. I'll catch one for you to try later. Then he threw the cock to Fang. After Yaya sniffed it, he chewed happily. What about Lou Wei? It doesn't need to guard the Sorcerer's Stone anymore, right? Luren saw it and suddenly remembered the three-headed dog. I'm sending it to the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid wiped the table and set a large teapot and a large plate of treacle taffy on it. Luren ate one, and ended up sticking his upper and lower teeth together. Woo, is it the way I eat it? Luren's mind was full of question marks. It was the first time he knew that sugar could stick to his teeth so much. By the way, what kind of animal dares to come to Hagrid to steal a chicken? Is there anything unusual recently? After washing the toffee down with a big cup of hot tea, Luren pretended to be indifferent and changed the topic to the issues of greatest concern. Hey, anything is possible. Even small animals like weasels in the Muggle world are very suspicious. Hagrid didn't take this matter to heart, but isn't the biggest anomaly in the school these days Harry? I heard that Harry is already issuing autographed photos. Why didn't I get them? I didn't, Harry fumed. Hagrid laughed, and the whole room shook. I'm kidding. Harry, you don't need to do that at all. You're famous enough already. Hagrid patted Harry on the back affectionately, until Harry's face hit the table, and then he said to Luren and Harry, you two have cheated a lot of little witches. 2 days ago, there was a little witch wandering around my house. She said she was just walking around, but I think she probably hoped to meet someone in my house. End of this chapter. Chapter 212 Snake Whisperer. Luren was so excited that he almost stood up, which made Hermione's face swell up. Hagrid glanced at him, and couldn't help shaking his head. The little wizard is really precocious now. However, according to Luren's opinion, the population of the wizarding world should encourage puppy love, and the Weasley family should be praised as a positive model. If every wizarding family can have 5 or 6 children, the wizarding world will have a future to speak of. In the current British magic world, the fault tolerance rate is too low. If hundreds of wizards are killed in a battle, it can be said that a generation has been wiped out. I guess it's Ginny, right? She seems to be the only one of these little witches who can do such a thing, and she's a huge fan of Harry. Luren slapped Hagrid sideways, because he noticed that Hagrid didn't seem too willing to reveal the other party's name. Hagrid shook his head. You guessed wrong. It's not Ginny. I don't know her either. She looks like a Gryffindor junior girl. Hagrid is currently just a hunting ground guard, and there are still quite a lot of wizards in the school. Yes, he can't remember every student's name either. But this information is enough. Hagrid had helped him narrow it down to the Gryffindor and junior circles. In other words, Luren only needs to go to at most 3 female dormitories to find that diary. So here comes the question, how does he get to the girls' dormitory? This problem has become the key to breaking the situation. Of course, you can also ask Hermione to get it, but this is too dangerous. The current diary has recovered a certain amount of power. If Hermione has something wrong with this, then he will definitely too late to regret. Luren also found that he seemed to have a misunderstanding in his thinking. He didn't need to find the diary. He could open the secret room first and find the basilisk. Although Salazar Slytherin has always claimed that only his descendants can control the basilisk, there is a high probability that he is bragging. Basilisks were not created by Slytherins. The first wizard who discovered that a basilisk can be hatched by using a toad to hatch an egg is called Despicable Harible. He is one of the most powerful and influential dark wizards known in history. Where is he awesome? He was the first wizard to successfully create a Horcrux, and the first wizard to hatch a basilisk. Without him, the Hogwarts story might become a campus romance novel. So at most, the 2 Parseltongs gave conflicting orders, and the basilisk would tend to listen to the orders of people with Slytherin blood, which is nothing more than a strong claim, and this basilisk doesn't seem to have a strong killing intent. Neither Colin nor Hermione died in its hands. Yes, they did not look the basilisk in the eye. So what? The basilisk really wants to kill them. A touch is always okay, right? But it didn't. It just followed Voldemort's instructions perfunctorily, purely paddling. So after making a comprehensive judgment, Luren felt that he could indeed consider contacting the basilisk. By the way, you can also search for the treasures left by Slytherin. Who would believe that Slytherin, one of the big 4, took pains to build a secret room just to raise snakes for fun? So after saying goodbye to Hagrid, Luren found a reason to get rid of Harry and the others, and went to the Hogwarts library, more precisely, the restricted section of the library. The school has just started, people's learning motivation is the lowest, and there are not many people in the library. After Mrs. Pingsy greeted her, Luren walked into the depths of the library. It has to be said that the titles of the books in the restricted area seem to be very high-end, such as Secrets of Advanced Transfiguration, Detailed Explanation of Runes, Advanced Divination, Forbidden curse. Lu-Ren was extremely greedy, and this year, there just happens to be a lovely professor who can meet his needs. Looking at the books on the shelf, Lu-Ren's affection for Lockhart increased. But these books are not his target today. He's looking for language teaching materials. Dumbledore can speak mermaid and goblin can also understand Parseltongue. These can't be born with it, can they? It must have been something he learned in school. Soon, he had a harvest on a very remote bookshelf. He saw many dusty books. Concise fairy language tutorial. Hello, mermaid, walk through the giant country. Soon, Lu-Ren saw his target on the bookshelf. The Snake Whisperer was a thin book with a mottled brown cover, and the silver letters on the cover had almost fallen off. Books in the restricted section must be borrowed with a professor's signature and permission. Mrs. Pants suddenly appeared behind Lu-Ren. I understand. Lu-Ren smiled and left the library. Mrs. Pants shook her head with a wry smile. She knew exactly who this little wizard was looking for, but she couldn't do anything about it. Rules are rules, and she can't stand any violation of the rules. Correspondingly, as long as it complies with the rules, she will agree to any request. Even in her mind, obtaining permission signatures through Professor Lockhart was clearly exploiting a loophole. Lu-Ren didn't even look for Lockhart at all. He was crazy to let Lockhart know that he was learning Parseltongue. As long as he found out about this, the whole school would soon know about it. If there was another incident in the Chamber of Secrets, then he, Lu-Ren, would be the #1 suspect. Even if he lived in Dumbledore's office for 24 hours, it would be difficult to clear up the suspicion. Last semester, he had paid an extremely high price to obtain a copy of Lockhart's autograph, and now it was time for it to come in handy. For this autograph, Lu-Ren bears the name of Lockhart's true fan, but compared to the Chamber of Secrets opener, it's better to be a fan. Lu-Ren got the book Snake Whisperer as he wished, and started to read it. The knowledge in the book is quite brief, mainly the correspondence between the words in various snake languages and English. There is no way but to memorize them by rote. And this way of language learning reminded Lu-Ren of a movie he had seen, Persian Lesson. The movie tells the story of the Jew Jill who lied to be Persian in order to sign up for a concentration camp during World War II. At that time, the Germans thought that Persians were also Aryans and always treated them differently. He was favored by a German military officer because he wanted to learn Persian. After the war, he went to Iran to join his brother to open a restaurant. Giles, who didn't understand Persian at all, could only make up a language out of thin air. He began to use the names of the Jews in prison in concentration camps as roots, and made up thousands of Persian words. He didn't even make a single mistake. In the end, the officer disguised himself and absconded when Germany was in decline. The result was also obvious. At the airport, the Persian translator could not understand what he was saying, and he was eventually arrested. The fate of the officer is unknown, but if Lu-Ren talked with a basilisk in the secret room, he might not be able to get out alive, so he must find a chance to give it a try. End of this chapter. Chapter 213. This basilisk is not serious. Nini, tribute. Adomu, you are welcome. In the next week, Lu-Ren spent all his time learning Parseltongue. Even Hermione was left out in the cold. He declined Hermione's invitation to the library several times, because he didn't really want Hermione to know that he was learning Parseltongue cavity. If she finds out, she will definitely ask me to report to Professor Dumbledore or go with me, Lu-Ren thought, but in Hermione's eyes, it was Lu-Ren deliberately keeping a distance from her. Could it be that I went too far last time? But he was the first. Hermione was full of thoughts, and she couldn't even concentrate on her studies. What's more, Lu-Ren didn't return the things that day. Hermione's face turned red every time she thought about it. Has Hermione caught a cold recently? It seems that she often has a fever, and she is not very focused. Ron noticed Hermione's strangeness, and couldn't help but feel a little strange. Maybe? There's been a flu in the school recently, just ask Madame Pomfrey for a refreshing potion. Harry didn't care. After all, this is the wizarding world, and illness in the Muggle world is not a big problem. Even if it is, RNA viruses are also a piece of cake in the hands of wizards. When Hermione was struggling with emotional problems and woolen fabrics, Lu-Ren's Parseltongue could be said to have improved by leaps and bounds. He felt like he was doing it. So one day, he found an opportunity, and when he was in the same room with Harry, he actually did such a thing. He spoke to Harry directly in Parseltongue. Allah, hello. What? Harry responded. Mosi si? What to eat? Mosi mida. Eat meat. Harry thought it was a bit strange, but he replied, you can eat whatever you want. I'm going to try the school's kebab today anyway. Lu Ren left contentedly. It seems that this book is still very reliable. In the evening, Lu Ren looked at the sign of the women's restroom in the bathroom occupied by the crying Myrtle, shook his head and walked in. He made up his mind that if he was discovered, he would insist that the identification was not clear. After all, I'm just an international student who is not good at linguistics and can't even tell the difference between male and female. Lu Ren searched carefully for a while, and found a snake-shaped mark on the side of a faucet. In fact, the Chamber of Secrets has been opened many times. Originally, the descendants of Slytherin could enter the Chamber of Secrets only through a hidden trapdoor in a series of enchanted passages, but in the 18th century, the Hogwarts school planned to build a bathroom at the entrance of the Chamber of Secrets, which made it possible for the Chamber of Secrets to be exposed to people's sight. So at that time, a direct descendant of Slytherin named Corvinus Gaunt cast a few spells to add another layer of protection to the Chamber of Secrets, forming the current appearance. But with the decline of the Gaunt family, the location of the secret room was completely lost in the end. It was not until 1943 that the Chamber of Secrets was opened again by Voldemort, and Voldemort found the location of the Chamber of Secrets by looking through notes left by his ancestors. It's hard to imagine that Voldemort would seriously look for things in the women's toilet. Being discovered is social death. If it hadn't been for the discovery of the ancestors' record, Voldemort would never have been able to discover the Chamber of Secrets throughout his life. Oh, someone is coming here. What are you doing? Suddenly a voice sounded, and Lu Ren saw a phantom who looked like a squat student's acne. It's Myrtle. Myrtle also felt a little better when she saw that it was a handsome little wizard. It has nothing to do with you. Lu Ren didn't want to have too much entanglement with Myrtle. This guy is very difficult, but his nature is not bad. Lu Ren didn't want her to know too much. Myrtle's complexion changed, and she rushed into the backmost compartment of the bathroom angrily, and then dived into the toilet. Facing the faucet, Lu Ren uttered snake language immediately. The dragon hair emitted a dazzling white light and began to spin rapidly. Then, the pool moved. The pool slowly disappeared from Lu Ren's sight, revealing a thick water pipe that could be drilled into by one person. This magic is really cool, Lu Ren thought. He felt that the ancestor of the Gunter family's magic skills were really good. However, it takes a lot of courage to get into such a sewer-like pipe. Dirty and claustrophobic are things that human beings instinctively hate. Lu Ren resisted his nausea and jumped in. Lu Ren's intuition was right. This pipe is a sewer. Inside is a dark, slimy slide that feels endless. The slope of the pipe went down very steeply, and there were many thinner forks at the top. Lu Ren knew by feeling that he had slipped to a very deep place underground. Eventually, the pipe became horizontal, and he emerged from the mouth of the pipe after gliding for a while, falling to the wet ground with no light source around. Clean it up. Sigil. Lu Ren released 2 spells in succession to remove the dirt on his body and illuminate the surroundings. He found himself standing in a huge stone tunnel, and the ground was full of various skeletons of small animals. The tunnel twisted and twisted, but fortunately there were no forks. At the end of the tunnel, Lu Ren saw a wall with 2 intertwined snakes engraved on it. The snakes' eyes were decorated with emeralds. Open. Lu Ren repeated his old trick. The 2 snakes twisted and separated, and the stone wall split from the middle, slowly slid to the sides and disappeared, and the secret room appeared in front of Lu Ren's eyes. In the secret room, there are many stone pillars engraved with coiled and entangled serpents, towering to support the ceiling that melts in the darkness of the heights, and the whole room is filled with green and mysterious atmosphere. Why is Slytherin's decoration style so biased toward villains? Lu Ren was already unable to complain about the old man's aesthetics. At the end of the room there is a statue that runs the height of the room, clinging to the wall. Lu Ren had to lift his neck to see the face of the statue. It was an old, monkey-like face, with a long sparse beard that almost reached the hem of the wizard's robe carved in stone, and 2 gray standing with thick feet on the smooth floor of the room. Talk to me, Slytherin, the greatest of the 4 giants of Hogwarts. Lu Ren said the snake language to the statue. This line is really too shameful. Only Slytherin's second-year-olds will set this kind of code on their own code lock. The great stone face of Slytherin moved, and its mouth opened, widening and widening until it formed a gigantic black hole. Lu Ren closed his eyes. So hungry, so hungry, so hungry. I'm really hungry. A snake language came from the mouth of the statue. Lu Ren? Question mark? This basilisk doesn't seem very serious. Thank you for the rewards from the idle staff of Talonsu. Thanks to Yehu Wenayu, Mo Yixiang, Eslam, Zhu Tongfei, Sui Yuan's Flying Knife, Harry Shenhong, Guo de Gangai, Adeline, Cheng Yaojin, King Ian no. Konjak, Zuayuk's monthly ticket. Thank you to everyone who voted every day. The response to Chapter 6 was overwhelming. I am very glad that everyone has reached an agreement with me. Oh, monthly tickets are still required during the double monthly pass period. Let this book suck you dry. End of this chapter. Chapter 214, Slytherin's Legacy. I'm so hungry. The basilisk seemed to think of something, and the word stopped abruptly, as if it also realized that something was wrong. It lost all its sense of being a snake. Mortals, Hugh is presumptuous. This is the abode of the Supreme Being, the great giant Salazar Slytherin. The voice of the basilisk suddenly became solemn, but in Lu Ren's ears, there was no going back. The image of the basilisk is forever fixed in his heart as a gluttonous fat man. Lu Ren asked in Parseltongue, "What do you want to eat?" Basilisk. For a moment, there was a dead silence in the secret room. "Mortal, since you wake me up, you should serve me with blood." The basilisk seemed to want to struggle. "So are mice okay?" Lu Ren wasn't afraid at all. He had already seen through the nature of the basilisk. "Basilisk. Can I have some giant acromantia, please? If not, wild boar is fine too. If it's not good, some chicken, please." The basilisk finally gave up resisting. "I'm really hungry. You don't bring food here again, I'm going to sleep." Lu Ren. "Can you hold on for a while?" Lu Ren was also convinced. In the end, Lu Ren still left the secret room first, went to the edge of the forbidden forest and brought back a wild boar. When he returned to the secret room, the basilisk ran out excitedly. "Handsome boy, hungry, eat." Then the whole snake jumped on the wild boar and began to swallow hard. After it swallowed the wild boar, it came to its senses. "Actually, you don't have to keep your eyes closed, I can control my abilities." Lu Ren, "Damn, you didn't say it earlier." So he opened his eyes, and a giant snake over 20 feet, that is, more than 6 meters, appeared in front of his eyes. Its snake skin looked green and very bright, and it was a poisonous snake at first glance. In addition to its green, scaly skin, the basilisk has sharp teeth and yellow eyes the size of light bulbs. Although he looked directly into the eyes of the basilisk, there was no abnormality in Lu Ren's body, and Lu Ren, who had been with Norbert for a long time, didn't feel how big the snake was, but it was only merely 20 feet. Lu Ren knew very well that the basilisk can grow up to 50 feet, as long as a dragon, but Parseltongue can make the basilisk enter a deep sleep, thereby preventing it from continuing to grow, and entering a state similar to suspended animation. So although this basilisk has existed for nearly 1,000 years, it is still a child. "So what's your name?" "No name." The basilisk seemed to be drowsy again after eating. Dad didn't take it either. "Dad? It's your headmaster, Salazar Slytherin," the basilisk said lazily. "Have you killed someone before?" Basilisk. "Killed?" the basilisk said faintly. "I can't resist the orders of the descendants of Slytherin. Now he's back. But the orders are very vague, so I've been perfunctory him." Sure enough, Lu Ren's previous guess was verified. "Is there anything else you can do?" "I'll go back to sleep if I have nothing to do. Don't wander around the school alone these days. I don't know when that person will come back. Did Slytherin leave anything here?" "Me. But am I a thing?" "I shouldn't be a thing. Except for you." The basilisk was obviously impatient. "You people are really annoying." "Yes, just behind that statue, there's Slytherin's workshop, which contains some of his manuscripts." Then the basilisk turned its head and crawled towards where it came from. Lu Ren followed it and flew into the statue's mouth. The mouth of the Slytherin statue is wider than it looks. After walking dozens of steps, he came to a huge crypt, which contained many small animal bones, and the air smelled foul. It seemed that this was the lair of the basilisk. The basilisk crawled to a corner of the crypt, coiled itself up and remained motionless, apparently asleep. On the other side of the crypt was a stone door with a gold snake's head on the handle. "Lu Ren? ? I doubt." Lu Ren knocked on the door, and then the snake head started to move, opened its mouth wide, and a haughty voice came out. "Who is it?" Lu Ren felt really speechless. Why does this Slytherin room look like Ravenclaw? Lu Ren from the Central Plains, pay homage to Senior Hogwarts Slytherin. Yes. The snake twisted its head, and then opened the door. Lu Ren stepped into the room, and suddenly there were some faint stars in the room. Lu Ren looked up at the ceiling, but only saw a vast starry sky at this time. He seemed to be really in the wilderness. The sky was the quilt, the ground was the pavement. It was just an ordinary room, but it made people feel the insignificance of himself and the vastness of the universe. Thousands of years of time have washed away, but the magic here has not been invalidated. There is a chair and a table in the room, and a bookshelf with many manuscripts and books on it. Lu Ren lit up the lamp on the table and browsed the treasure left by Slytherin. After some time, Lu Ren read the manuscript on the table, and he also had a general understanding of Slytherin's research in his later years. It has to be said that Slytherin, one of the Big Four, is really a pioneer in the magical world. He spent his whole life studying bloodlines and how to borrow power from powerful creatures, and it is not difficult to see from the words in the manuscript that he succeeded in the end. He successfully integrated the blood of the basilisk and gained power beyond imagination. What is the specific power, he did not disclose in the manuscript. The parchments on the table are all records of Slytherin's experiments on blood fusion, but to Lu Ren's regret, all his experiments failed. In other words, the experimental records left in this room were all failures. In this case, Lu Ren would not be able to follow the path of Slytherin, because the risk of blood fusion is extremely high. If there is no magic potion, it is absolutely close to death, and the successful formula in this room has disappeared. Obviously, Lu Ren was not the first visitor. And looking at the failure records in this room, and the almost uncontrollable angry tone at the end of the report, Lu Ren could imagine how much Slytherin had paid for these experiments. Lu Ren is an ordinary little wizard. It is almost impossible to continue these experiments. There are even experiments using living people as materials. If he dared to do this, Dumbledore would definitely be happy to play the role of the third Hokage, but Lu Ren would be very embarrassed. He could only play Orochimaru. However, Lu Ren didn't like blood fusion either. Fusion might bring extremely troublesome side effects. What he looked at was another unfinished research of Slytherin, the cultivation of magical animals. However, because this work was not completed and the results were slow, it did not enter the side of the predecessors, so a relatively complete information was left. End of this chapter. Chapter 215. Salazar Slytherin believed that 7 was the most magical number in the wizarding world, and his research system was based on it. He believed that there was an upper limit to the bloodlines that a wizard could fuse with, and this upper limit, Slytherin believed, was 7. Although he himself did not touch this upper limit, he wrote this conjecture in his notes, and he also revealed one thing, that is, the other 3 of the Big Four also merged with the blood of magical animals. Among them, his former good friend Godric Gryffindor is the real hammer, while the remaining 2 are just guesses without evidence. As for the cultivation of magical animals, there is no upper limit. You can raise as many as you want, but there is an upper limit to the contracts you can sign, which is also 7. And the 7 is permanent. That is, once you sign 7 magical animals, you can no longer sign contracts with other magical animals. Even if there is a vacancy in the previous 7 contracted creatures, you can no longer sign contracts. 1 makes up 7. Because it involves the soul, once it exceeds 7, the soul is very likely to collapse due to being unable to bear this power. Lu Ren learned from his notes that after signing the contract, he can also obtain a certain amount of blood power, but it is really a drop in the bucket compared to blood fusion. The body and the eyes of death, but if you just sign a contract, it is nothing more than gaining the ability to shed your skin. Lu Ren rummaged through the information and found that there was no precedent for signing a contract with Hulong. Slytherin didn't go very far in this regard, and his energy was mainly focused on how to strengthen his basilisk. However, Slytherin speculates that signing a contract with a fire dragon is likely to obtain fire resistance. Lu Ren thought about it carefully. It seems that he was not burned when he used the large-scale fire magic before. This is the real dragon, not afraid of flames. Still, he'd be cool if a pot of molten gold had actually been poured over his head. Slytherin believes that signing a contract with Fire Dragon is mainly because of the body of Fire Dragon. If you want to obtain any useful superpowers, you should sleep well. At the end of his notes, he specifically reminded that it is best not to have attribute conflicts between various contracted animals. For example, creatures with strongly opposing attributes such as unicorns and dementors will cause major problems after signing contracts, which may affect a future development. And although signing is much safer than fusion, Slytherin still does not recommend signing with multiple magical animals. After Lu Ren read his experimental records and manuscripts, he admitted that although Slytherin was a second-year-old, narcissistic, and a little arrogant, his results were indeed worthy of these praises. Lu Ren felt that he should leave, but it's all here. He looked at the basilisk, who was already sleeping soundly. Since there is a limit to the magical animals that can be contracted, the more powerful the contracted creatures, the better. And what magical animal could be more powerful than a basilisk that Slytherin himself bred? Slytherin can also be regarded as a kind ancestor, leaving such a rich legacy to his heirs. As long as you enter the secret room, you can get the top-level monsters by clicking, and you can get 2 magic systems when you sign in. Hey guys, I'm playing check-in at Hogwarts. Sign into Hogwarts, go out and be invincible. A snake at the beginning. The blood depends entirely on fusion. Dang signed in for 11 years and suddenly discovered that it was HP? It's a pity that the lack of a system is a hidden achievement. But when Lu Ren woke up the basilisk, he euphemistically expressed his intention, "Can I be your master?" After that, he was directly rejected by the basilisk. "Sorry, I don't seem to be able to sign a contract with you." Lu Ren, why? I can be considered a young talent anyway, right? It's not your problem, but I feel that I can't sign contracts with other wizards, and I don't know why. Is it Tom? Lu Ren thought of a serious question. If Tom's contracted creature was a basilisk, then he might have to clear out this fat house that is harmless to humans and animals. Tom? Oh? That guy, he's not my master. The basilisk denied Lu Ren's speculation, but he couldn't explain why he couldn't sign a contract with Lu Ren. Lu Ren thought about it carefully. This matter is extremely frightening. The basilisk couldn't be his contract creature. Either the basilisk didn't like him and lied, or it already had an owner. Who is its owner? Lu Ren didn't stay here for long. He left the secret room after saying goodbye to the basilisk. After he came out, he realized that the sky outside was already slightly bright. He actually stayed in the secret room for a whole night. Fortunately, Harry and Ron were not meddlesome people, so they didn't rush to find the professor while there was still time before morning. Lu Ren hurriedly took a catch-up sleep in the dormitory. When he was woken up, it was not long before the first class in the morning. Facing Harry Ron's questioning, Lu Ren told a few lies and dismissed them. If there's anything more painful than staying up all night, it's going to history of magic. After an all-nighter, Professor Binns used his hypnotic voice to tell the history of the medieval European Wizarding Conference, and all the young wizards in the audience fell into power-saving mode without exception. Sitting in the corner of the classroom, Lu Ren was drowsy, while Hermione beside him was writing furiously. I don't know when it started. Hermione no longer sat in the first row, but sat next to Lu Ren. Lu Ren originally wanted to skip this class, but Ron and the others woke him up, so he had no choice but to bite the bullet and go to class. In the end, even with the blessing of a cup of black coffee, Lu Ren was successfully hypnotized by Professor Binns. In the past, Lu Ren could still remember his notes very well, but today Lu Ren, who is sitting in the corner, can only do one hand reaching party as words flew out of Professor Binns' mouth. Lu Ren's head shook little by little, and finally, he rested his head gently on Hermione's shoulder. The girl's shoulders are soft, revealing a faint fragrance, which is hypnotic. Lu Ren's head rested lightly on Hermione's shoulder, which made her tense all of a sudden. Hermione, who rarely had physical contact with others, was very sensitive, and even a simple touch would make her feel tense. She couldn't concentrate on taking notes. Well, don't be like this," she said to Lu Ren in a very low voice, but instead, Lu Ren's hot breath was sprayed on her earlobe. This breath was like the steam of boiling water. Wherever it went, a blush. Hermione was speechless all of a sudden. She looked at Lu Ren's tired, sleeping face, his slightly sunken cheeks and the dark circles around his eyes, and felt a little distressed. This guy, these few days, it must be very hard, right? So she acquiesced in Lu Ren's behavior and let him fall asleep leaning on her shoulder. End of this chapter. Chapter 216, Tempest. What is the most healing thing? Maybe it's a girl's knee pillow, but what Lu Ren enjoys now, maybe it can be called a shoulder pillow. Leaning against Hermione, he felt a sense of relief and slept soundly. On the side, there were several more people eating melons. After all, it was Professor Binns' class, and their energy was often unable to concentrate on the class itself. Ron looked at Lu Ren, who was asleep, and he regained his energy. He couldn't help sighing to Harry, who was drawing on the book next to him. What the hell did Lu Ren do last night? He never slept in class before. I don't really care what he did last night, but I feel that the relationship between him and Hermione has changed since school started. Harry pushed his black-rimmed glasses and made a bold reasoning. Lu Ren and Hermione. Ron showed a shocked expression. Is there really someone who likes that know-it-all lady? Is this to find a mother for myself? Harry spread his hands to show that he couldn't figure it out either. The two boys are just gossiping, but the girls are very hot. Shameless, coquettish. Fuck. Are you crazy about men? Lavender gritted her teeth angrily. She felt something was wrong on the first day of school, but she didn't expect her worst worry to come true. She hates it so much. If she had acted earlier, she would be the one who provided the shoulder pillow now. Lavender couldn't figure it out. What's so good about Granger? Is it because of her cleverness? Dare to do such a thing openly in class. It's no longer an ordinary classmate relationship, and Hermione will be hit hard. She and her best friend Parvati bit their ears. Calm down, calm down. This matter needs to be discussed in the long run. Parvati was taken aback, afraid that her friend would do something irrational, so she quickly dissuaded her. This actually angered Lavender. She remembered that she wanted to launch an offensive of love last semester, but Parvati put it in a perfunctory way. If she hadn't brought out some authentic Cheyenne seasoning, Lu Ren wouldn't have done it either. After eating diarrhea, I have already conquered his stomach. Fortunately, Lu Ren would not touch anything that Lavender handed over to her. Lavender suspected for a while that Parvati was Hermione's undercover agent, but later discovered that she was really bad at relationship science. Then she can only rely on herself, but fortunately, she has found a reliable senior who understands it very well. Lavender felt that with the help of his seniors, he would be able to defeat Hermione in one fell swoop and bring Lu Ren back on track. HMPH, from a long-term perspective, looking at them like this, I'm afraid they can do anything shameful. Lu Ren is such a good boy, but Hermione has spoiled him. Lavender looked heartbroken. Bad, then let me lead him badly. If you continue to think about it in the long run, Hermione will become a stuffed one. Parvati didn't react for a while, but soon understood the meaning of stuffed, and couldn't help blushing. Lavender, what are you thinking? We are still young. At the same time, Hermione was completely indifferent to studying, and her mind didn't know where to go. When the bell rang for the end of get out of class, Lu Ren also woke up. He stretched himself and started to pack his things. Can you pay more attention in the future? Everyone is looking at you strangely. Why don't you care? Hermione rolled up a roll of parchment and tapped Lu Ren's head. I'm not Gold Gallon, so I can't please everyone. Even if it's gold, there are people who hate it, let alone me. Lu Ren carried Hermione's knocking forcefully, and took the sheepskin with unknown symbols on it. The paper was put away. Besides, as long as one person likes me, even if the whole world dislikes me, as long as that person still needs me, then there is no problem. Then, who is that person? Hermione's heartbeat stopped suddenly, and then accelerated rapidly. I'm a bad guy. I like whoever is the prettiest. Lu Ren put his school bag back on his back. By the way, did you take notes? Lend me to see. No. Hermione felt that this guy in front of her was really annoying, and she decided to temporarily break up with him for an undetermined duration. Huh? Lu Ren hurried to catch up. October is here, and the Scottish Highlands are ushering in a cold snap. The sudden outbreak of the flu that had been circulating in a small area before made the school doctor, Miss Pomfrey, in a hurry, and the beds in the school hospital were full for a while. Fortunately, her improved refreshing potion had an immediate effect. Of course, the side effect is that people who drink this potion will have smoke in their ears for several hours. Just before Halloween, the day Lu Ren had been waiting for came to complete the transformation of Animagus. One must wait for a thunderstorm. The sky has been raining like bullets for the past few days. Lu Ren looked at the sky nervously every day, waiting for the thunder and lightning. Soon, the weather deteriorated and the rain turned into a downpour, which, even more desperately, did not dampen Wood's enthusiasm for regular Quidditch practice. So finally, at dusk on a stormy Saturday, Lu Ren, who was training on a broom in the rain, stopped and watched a flash of lightning across the dark sky. Lu Ren immediately drove the broom towards the place where he hid the crystal vial. He hid the bottle in the room of requirement, and he had to go right away. He didn't want to wait any longer. God knows when the next storm with thunder and lightning will wait, and now he has to point his wand at his heart and chant spells every day. Lu Ren couldn't care about Wood anymore. He vaguely heard the shout of Lu Ren, "Where are you going?" and Wood's words saying that he can take a break for a while, but he didn't turn his head, and went straight to the room of requirement. When he rushed into the room and dug out the crystal vial, he got a vial containing a mouthful of blood-red potion. Unfortunately, everyone else's potions, except for Hermione's, were the same, which means they all failed. Lu Ren hastily wrote a note, then turned it into a butterfly, let it deliver a message to Hermione, and waited for Hermione's arrival. After a while, Hermione came to the room of requirement, and the two of them took out the potion together. At this point, they need to go to a wide and safe place to ensure that the transformation process will not attract attention or put their bodies in danger. How could there be a safer place than the room of requirement? So they came out and returned to the house again. Luren could feel the magic power in the potion bottle dissipating rapidly. He quickly took out his wand, and asked Hermione to follow his own movements, pointing the tip of the wand to the heart, and said the spell Mato, Onimo, and Imato. Animagus then drank the potion. The potion worked. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Catwoman. Many things cannot be thought about carefully, such as potion formulas. Animagus's potion contains saliva, moth pupae and other weird things. Just thinking about it will give goosebumps. The potion tasted like jelly, and after drinking it, the whole stomach seemed to be covered with a layer of frost, and then gradually spread to the internal organs and limbs. Luren felt the magic power in his body start to work on its own, followed by intense pain and heartbeat. Gradually, a somewhat hazy animal image appeared in his mind. To his surprise, the animal he was going to turn into was not a panda, but it's normal to think about it. My wand is not a combination of panda tail hair and bamboo. There is no rule in the magic world that people from the Central Plains must become giant pandas. The first time is never scary, which is why a lot of people cry when they're done. The feeling of clothes and other accessories melting into the skin is extremely evil, and at the same time the magic begins to go up and modify his brain to make his brain slightly higher than the brain performance of the corresponding creature. Transformation is complete. Luren was gradually adapting to the new body and perspective, but in his eyes, a huge monster suddenly appeared, which looked a bit like a tiger. Meow. Hearing the meow, Luren instinctively felt a burst of fear, and then flew up. Yes, Luren can fly without magic. Luren vaguely had an idea in his mind, but he didn't verify his guess until he flew to a mirror. He turned into a raven. He can't accept it. As a Gryff finder, how did he become the mascot of Ravenclaw? Of course, there are many benefits to being a raven. Ravens have the largest brains among birds and are very intelligent. People believe that ravens have advanced intelligence. Ravens are extremely insightful, and an experiment was designed to assess their insight and problem-solving abilities. This experiment is to hang a piece of meat on a high platform with a rope. If a raven wants to eat that piece of meat, it must stand on the high platform, pull up the rope for a while, and shorten the rope in a circle. 4 of the 5 ravens eventually succeeded, and they did so without any apparent trial and error learning. Ravens can also imitate environmental sounds, including human speech, so Luren's animagus form can actually speak human speech. There are 15 to 30 types of raven sounds, and what is even more shocking is that most of these sounds are used for social purposes. These calls include alarm, pursuit and fight calls. Ravens are highly social animals. They often come in pairs, and some young ravens even form groups. There is a group of ravens in the Forbidden Forest of Hogwarts. It is said that Ravenk a legacy from the Lau era. There will be frequent quarrels among ravens, but they are all family-loving. If the partner is lost, the other party will also imitate the partner's voice to call the other party. In short, these little birds should not be underestimated. Although they are not small birds, adult ravens are about 56-69 centimeters long, with a wingspan of 115 foot 130 centimeters and a weight of 0.69 to 1.63 kg, making them the heaviest birds in the passerine order. Such a bird can no longer be called a bird. Luren flapped his wings and flew up from the mirror. The feeling of flying in the air is still wonderful. He never thought that flying is so easy, just like walking. After a while, Luren gradually got used to all this, and when he looked down at the ground, he realized that what he thought was a tiger just now was actually a very beautiful little cat. At this time, the kitten is squatting on the ground doing the cat meow washing face. Luren realized that it was Hermione's animagus. He wanted to complain, "Hermione, that you didn't look like Professor McGonagall, you are simply a copy of Professor McGonagall." He had a lot of associations, as if the animagus forms of the two of them could still be connected with the ancient 4 elephants. He was a low-profile version of Suzaku. So Hermione was. Luren fell back to the ground, changed back into human form, and hugged the kitten that Hermione had turned into. He wanted to turn the kitten over to see the male and female with a wicked sense of humor, but his remaining sanity made him dismiss the idea. Hermione might really turn his back. He scratched the kitten's chin, and the kitten snored comfortably, but in the next moment, its eyes were as white as light bulbs, and then it meowed loudly. and escaped from Lu Ren's grasp. It landed on the ground and turned back into that beautiful girl again. Hermione glared at Lu Ren, and finally choked out a sentence, "If you dare to do this again, I will pluck out the feathers of the bird you turned into next time." Lu Ren didn't take this threat to heart at all, laughed to death, "Just like you can catch me? But the feeling of turning into an animal is really very strange." The two of them couldn't help but try it again in the house, and they didn't change back until they had fun. "Should we report to the Ministry of Magic?" Hermione suddenly realized this problem. Once an unreported animagus is found, he will be sentenced. She began to worry about gains and losses again. This was the first time she was on the verge of violating the law. In fact, breaking the law made her feel flustered, but there was also a faint excitement like eating forbidden fruit. Of course, Hermione would definitely not admit this feeling. No need. Lu Ren had no intention of reporting it. "Just kidding, why should I report this to the Ministry of Magic? Naturally, this kind of trump card should be hidden." Taking a step back, "If one day I enter Azkaban, I can rely on this to escape? Actually, there are quite a few wizards who are animagus, but they haven't reported it. I don't want you to tell the Ministry of Magic about it. The Ministry of Magic is not trustworthy." Lu Ren put his hands on Hermione's shoulders, said very seriously, "This is a secret shared between you and me." A shared secret? Hermione felt her heart beating faster than when she had just taken the potion. "Yes, this is a little secret that belongs only to you and me." Lu Ren blinked. Hermione felt herself on top. The Ministry of Magic has to report it, mainly because when practicing animagus, people may go crazy and cannot return to normal humans. Therefore, the Ministry of Magic strictly controls this magic, and at the same time registers your characteristics so that you can use it in the future. "I'll find you after you lose it." Lu Ren explained the ins and outs of this law to Hermione. He stared at Hermione. "If one day, you or I get lost, I believe we will definitely keep looking for each other, won't we?" Ah. The hook. It is good. Lu Ren and Hermione hooked each other again, and after making the oath, Lu Ren looked at Hermione with a smile. "Come on, change again and let me see your features." End of this chapter. Chapter 218 Is Hogwarts Jingluo's lair? Hermione became anxious all of a sudden. "No, you are not allowed to look around casually." After repeated assurances from Lu Ren, Hermione returned to the cat form. Lu Ren squatted in front of Hermione and stared at her for a long time. Even the cats who watched were embarrassed and didn't see anything unusual. This is just an ordinary cat. Could it be that Hermione's cat is particularly beautiful? Or is it the brownish fur? By the way, this cat's fur looks really messy. Lu Ren thought to himself. He looked carefully for a while. If he had to find a difference, it might be that the cat's canine teeth were particularly long. Are the eyes brown? In the end, he didn't dare to say anything about the canine teeth. He knew that this girl actually had a heart of inferiority and self-esteem hidden under her proud appearance. He just told Hermione that he thought her form was a little shaggy, with brown eyes and hair. Hermione couldn't help being a little disappointed. What kind of characteristic is this? However, Lu Ren's characteristics are unusually obvious. After his transformation, the raven has a circle of white patterns around his right eye, which looks like he is wearing a monocle, and the shape of the pupil in that eye is also very strange. The pupil is triangular, the pupils are thin lines, very different from the eyes of ordinary crows. Hermione described this feature, and Lu Ren immediately understood that this pattern is the symbol of the Deathly Hallows, and it should come from the necklace he wore when he transformed. After observing each other, the two left the room of requirement. Lu Ren changed back into the form of a raven and flew up in the Hogwarts castle, and Hermione returned to the Gryffindor common room. At this time, it was completely dark, and the rain outside was getting lighter, but it still made the flying animals instinctively uncomfortable. Lu Ren was no exception. He really couldn't fly outside to get wet in the rain, so he wandered around inside the castle like other birds. In fact, other birds can't be said to be running around. Most of the birds still take shelter from the rain under the eaves to rest, and only a small number of active birds will fly around. It was getting late, and there were not many little wizards in the corridor. Lu Ren flapped his wings and flew over their heads without anyone noticing. Perhaps the black feathers acted as a cover. Not only did no one care, Lu Ren could even eavesdrop on the conversations of the little wizards. What's more interesting is that Lu Ren's raven form also allows him to understand the language of birds, like the two owls in the foyer talking about today's work. One of them just flew back from Ireland, and the chickadee by the window berating the damn weather. Suddenly, a male raven passed by Lu Ren. "Ah, It's a newcomer, a newcomer. It shouted excitedly. Its call soon set off a tsunami of bird calls. All ravens. Are you new here? Do you want to meet the patriarch with me? Little Raven issued a warm invitation. Lu Ren thought about it, and it seemed that there was no harm. How could the little raven have evil intentions? Besides, he was also very interested in this fabled group of ravens, so he readily accepted the invitation. Then it took Lu Ren to the corridor not far away. Lu Ren looked around, and there were hundreds of black ravens in the corridor. We have a new member in our family. An extraordinarily large raven in the middle of the group of ravens glanced at Lu Ren, thinking that this new raven was obviously immature, but with long feathers. She looks quite good looking and is a good embryo, so she approves of Lu Ren's arrival. After being recognized, Lu Ren was surrounded by a lot of ravens. They chattered and asked Lu Ren questions. For example, where did he come from? Where was he going? How many crows did he have at home? How old was he this year? Etc. Lu Ren's head became dizzy due to the twittering. The arrival of Lu Ren also made the eyes of some female crows in the crow group brighten. This little brother is quite handsome. The ravens were also straight-hearted, so there was nothing to say when they saw it. After a while, 6 or 7 female ravens and a male ran over to ask Lu Ren if he had any thoughts on mating. Lu Ren, you don't have to. After a while, the leader of the ravens suddenly called loudly, and all the ravens stopped. Lu Ren was a little confused, so in the next moment, all the ravens began to sing in chorus. Ancestor, grandfather, lineage, father. Ancestor, grandfather, lineage, father. Always smart, Ravenclaw. Your prestige, in any era, is famous all over the world. Ravenclaw, Ravenclaw, I love you with all my heart. Lu Ren? Question mark? Heart lung, stop. This is set in Deaton, isn't it? Definitely set in Deaton. This Ottoman taste is too strong. Is Hogwarts Jinglew's lair? Exclamation mark. Lu Ren was a little confused. What happened to these ravens? After the chorus was over, the raven language next to him said earnestly to Lu Ren, you haven't seen this scene, have you? Lu Ren said that he had never seen such a scene. He inquired and found out that this group of ravens were descendants of the pets raised by Ms. Ravenclaw back then, and they have reproduced freely in the Forbidden Forest to this day. I don't know when. A raven leader learned this song outside, and taught it to his own clan after returning to the Forbidden Forest, and then it spread among the raven community. Then do you know the source of this song? Lu Ren asked the ravens. Of course, this is a Roman folk song. A raven told Lu Ren with its head held high. Lu Ren, I feel very complicated now. It turns out that this group of ravens is not Jingluo, but Jingluo. Why is it that some people are good at Green Luo? However, he had an idea and taught the ravens another song. That is the famous song, You Will Come Back Like Lightning. Let these ravens understand what is the real Rome. Lu Ren secretly made up his mind. After playing with the ravens for a while, Lu Ren left. He found a way to sneak into the girls' dormitory. That was to fly in by turning into a raven. What evil could the little raven have? I just wanted to go into the dormitory and take a diary. Although it sounds a little perverted, and this kind of behavior is actually perverted, entering a girl's dormitory and stealing a girl's diary is obviously not something that a decent person can do, but Lu Ren really did it out of a public heart. Great. This is Lu Ren's evaluation of his actions this time. So, a little raven appeared outside the Gryffindor Tower. He circled around a few times, but he didn't find any windows open. It was raining outside, so the little wizards naturally closed the windows firmly. Lu Ren is cracked. His actions were dead on. The risk of operating at night was too high. Lu Ren thought that he could wait for the weather to clear before finding another opportunity to find the diary. End of this chapter. Chapter 219, Riddle's Diary. This year's Halloween was uneventful. No strange creatures came into the school. The only news was that nearly headless Nick held a, birthday party, but the limelight of his party was completely underestimated. The Headless Hunter team invited to cover it. Lu Ren had no interest in the banquet of the ghosts. All the food at the banquet was rotten, and if he ate it, he might become one of the ghosts. He rejected Harry's invitation from the beginning, and decided to enjoy the Halloween dinner honestly. The Great Hall of Hogwarts, which is the opposite of the world of the undead, has been decorated with live bats as usual. Hagrid's giant pumpkins had been carved into lanterns, big enough for 3 people to sit inside. Dumbledore even booked a skeleton dance troupe to entertain everyone. This is the place that fits the aesthetics of living people. Yin and yang are in order, and the living should not rush into the world of the dead. And Harry and Ron really regretted it too. Nearly headless Nico's death day party was a terrible experience for the living. After Halloween, The continuous heavy rain at Hogwarts finally stopped when Lu Ren saw that the small windows on the Gryffindor Tower were opened again. He felt that the time was right. So he chose lunchtime. At mealtime, the dormitory was the least crowded, and Lu Ren turned into a black raven and flew into the girls' dormitory. He did not return to human form because he was afraid of triggering some weird alarms. After all, Gryffindor was the one who could cast a spell on the passageway at the door of the girls' dormitory, so it was possible that he added some weird spells in the dormitory even if there is no Gryffindor. Maybe the parents of the girls in the dormitory have prepared some magic props with unknown meaning, so it is better to be cautious. The first dormitory he chose was the first-year dormitory where Ginny lived. He still had some doubts about Ginny, so he checked her first. The decoration style of the women's bedroom and the men's bedroom is similar. The main style is the golden red that symbolizes Gryffindor. There are several beds with 4 pillars and crimson velvet curtains hanging inside, but there are some differences in the details. The difference? There are some girlish cute decorations. Lu Ren didn't have the time to check all kinds of decorations. He flew around the bedroom quickly, and didn't see anything that seemed to be Riddle's diary in the open. He also patiently rummaged through each little witch's bed to make sure there was no diary under the pillow. Then he made his way to Hermione's second-year dormitory. Since it was lunchtime, the dormitory was empty, and a few magazines were spread out on the table. Lockhart inside showed a charming smile. The dormitory was covered with stickers and posters, large and small, all Lockhart's. No doubt Lu Ren didn't quite understand. Wouldn't it be depressing to post so many portraits of people in the sleeping place? Being stared at by ordinary photos is already uncomfortable. Is it really not a nightmare to be stared at by these moving photos? Maybe girls chasing stars is the same as boys playing figurines. Lu Ren guessed in his heart at his bedside. In addition to these, some clothes such as underwear and socks were scattered on the bedside and chairs. Lu Ren looked around, and suddenly his eyes lit up. He saw a black notebook with a tattered cover under a pillow. He flew to the bed and saw the lavender nameplate on the bed, so he suddenly realized it was her. God knows how she got this diary, but now is not the time to think about it. It is not suitable to stay here for a long time. Lu Ren picked up the diary and flew out. Everything was normal and nothing happened. Lu Ren flew back to his dormitory with a notebook. This time, he didn't repeat the lesson of empiricism. Although he was sure about the diary's identity, he still had to take another test. If it's fake again, it wouldn't be too embarrassing. Sitting on his 4-poster bed, Lu Ren opened the notebook. The pages inside had turned yellow, but there was no trace of writing or drawing on it. Then he took a bottle of ink from the bedside table, dipped the quill in it, and let a drop of ink fall on the first page of the diary. The ink stayed on the paper for less than a second, and then, like a drop of water on sand, was sucked into the paper and disappeared without a trace. Lu Ren smiled happily. Soon, some ink bleeds from the paper, and the ink gradually forms a sentence. Hi. My name is Tom Riddle. May I know your name? My name is Lu Ren, but according to what you said, it should be called Renlu. This is the first time I've seen a notebook like yours. Lu Ren thought for a while and continued to write on the paper. Nice to meet you, Lu Ren. How did you find my diary? I picked it up. I'm going to class first. We'll talk after class, Tom. Lu Ren decided to deal with Voldemort first. After finishing writing, he hurriedly closed the diary and put it in his school bag. Then he hurried to Dumbledore's office. Yes, he decided to give the Horcrux to Dumbledore as soon as possible, so as not to have more dreams at night. Leave the Horcrux and ask it a question. Lu Ren is crazy to do this. What can Horcruxes teach him? Voldemort was only a 6th grader when this Horcrux was made. What else does Voldemort have besides magic, snake language? But he has already met. So Lu Ren just wanted to hand over this hot potato to Dumbledore as soon as possible. At the door of the office, Lu Ren wasted a little time, but he still successfully tried out the password for the office after saying a lot of passwords as if he was giving the name of the dish, lemon sherbet. After entering the office, Professor Dumbledore was looking at a letter. After dozens of days of peace, Dumbledore looked a little younger. He seemed very surprised by Lu Ren's arrival. Ren, what are you doing here? Dumbledore stared at him with a penetrating gaze that Lu Ren was very familiar with. Are you going to class soon? Lu Ren handed Riddle's diary to Dumbledore. This is Voldemort's Horcrux, Professor. Hearing these words, Lu Ren saw Dumbledore's expression change. He stood up abruptly, and walked to Lu Ren's side. He bent down and stared at the diary seriously for a while. His nose was about to poke into the diary. Then he stood up straight, put his hands on the desk, and said with his back to Lu Ren, "You did a very good job. This is indeed a very, Very evil black magic item. Put it here first, and I will find a way dealt with. After speaking, he turned around and looked at Lu Ren with a loving face. Son, you have done a very good job. Go to class quickly. This time, you may be able to win an outstanding contribution award. Lu Ren left the diary to Dumbledore, and then left the office under Dumbledore's watch. Thank you Lin Nai for your reward. Thanks to Mad Hulk for the monthly pass. End of this chapter. Chapter 220 Tom Riddle. Logically speaking, after handing over the Horcrux to Dumbledore, Lu Ren should feel very relaxed, but his heart is still heavy, as if something has not been resolved. After leaving the principal's office, Lu Ren walked in the empty corridor. His steps became smaller and smaller. Finally, he stopped by a window in the corridor, staring at the sky outside. His heart became more and more blocked, and he always felt that there was something he hadn't done yet. Looking at the forbidden forest outside the window, he was in a daze for a while, and then returned to Dumbledore's office. Seeing Lu Ren go back and forth, Dumbledore frowned. Why are you here again? Lu Ren didn't speak but just stared at him for a while. Then he suddenly walked up to the portrait of Phineas Black, put his hand in it, and groped behind the portrait as empty. Professor, where did you put the Hogwarts title deed? You asked me to get it before, but I forgot. I've changed my mind. Dumbledore looked at Lu Ren and said, Son, I still have a lot of work to do. Lu Ren looked around the office for another week, and finally his eyes fell on a portrait. He sighed. Tom, I really didn't expect your strength to have recovered so much. Dumbledore looked at Lu Ren, didn't speak for a while, and then he showed a wicked smile. I didn't expect you to find out so soon. As he spoke, his face gradually distorted and his figure changed a little. Finally, a handsome boy about 16 years old stood in front of Lu Ren. A silver prefect badge gleamed on his chest. He was much taller than Lu Ren, but he also had black shiny hair. How did you find out? He asked Lu Ren with great interest. Professor Dumbledore never told me about the title deed, but there is indeed something hidden behind that portrait. Lu Ren explained to the young Voldemort. However, it was Dumbledore's tone that made him suspicious at first. The hypocritical kindness made Lu Ren feel a little awkward, so he tried a little bit, but he was tricked out of him immediately. After he became suspicious, he discovered many problems in the details. For example, the layout of Dumbledore's office has changed a lot, and the portraits on the wall are also very problematic. The portrait of Principal Armando Diput is different from what he remembered. Lu Ren remembered that the picture on the wall was a middle-aged gentleman smoking a pipe, but the current portrait of the principal was a bald-headed wizard who looked weak and shriveled. All these gave Lu Ren reason to believe that he had fallen into the memory or illusion constructed by Voldemort. And these differences all stem from the differences in memory between Voldemort and Lu Ren. The office he built was the office of Dumbledore he saw when he was young, and the portrait of the headmaster he drew was the old and incompetent headmaster in his impression. This exposed him. I still want to ask you, why are you at Lavender's place? After Lu Ren answered Voldemort's confusion, he also had his own questions. That fellow Lucius betrayed me, but it was within my expectation. Everything was under my control, including Lucius' betrayal. Voldemort, or Riddle, sat in the principal's chair superior. He sold me, huh? The great Lord Voldemort was only worth 5 galleons and a necklace. Then the owner of that store resold me to Little Witch, a little girl who only had love in her mind. Which? Riddle seemed a little dissatisfied that he was only worth 5 galleons, and there was a trace of deep disgust on his face. Lavender Brown, an idiot who just wanted to be in love, who opened up to an unseen stranger and poured out all her secrets. Over 2 months. For all that time, she wrote her thoughts in the diary and told me her stupid troubles that drove me crazy. Riddle's eyes flashed teasingly. She likes you, she wants you, but she leaves you farther and farther away. You're always surrounded by that mudblood named Granger, which makes her very unhappy. When Riddle spoke, he kept staring straight into Lu Ren's eyes. The expression inside was creepy. It was almost crazy greed. It's just a nightmare. Listening to a 12 or 13-year-old girl tell her childish bad things is really a kind of torture, but I patiently wrote some words to answer her and give her advice. In her eyes, I am a kind, understanding, omnipotent senior. She almost fell in love with me. This is also my ability all the time. I have always been very pleasing. Riddle grinned. His face made Lu Ren feel as if he was looking directly at a snake. Lu Ren, you may not believe it. I have always been able to confuse people and play tricks on them. Whether it is the heir of a pure-blood family, the elite of the Ministry of Magic, or the professor of Hogwarts, They are all played around by me. So Lavender opened up her whole soul to me, and her soul happened to be exactly what I needed. I devoured her darkest fears, her deepest secrets, and her offerings of blood. In this way, it became stronger and recovered a lot of strength. In order to make me stronger, Miss Lavender even took me to the slaughterhouse for a period of time, where the remnants of the livestock before death are really great supplements. Although the quality is poor, the quantity is sufficient. Eventually, I became much stronger than little Miss Lavender, strong enough to open my soul to her. I can even manipulate her to open the secret room, and I can also create a fantasy world that looks like it is real. It's just a part of my power. Lu-Ren, come on, open your soul, I can make you omnipotent. Riddle stood up excitedly, waving his arms, and the background behind him changed rapidly. Lu-Ren stood with him on the Golden Mountain. Yes, there are countless people bowing their heads to them, and there are also extremely eclectic scenes. These scenes dispersed one by one, and they returned to the principal's office. However, the space twisted for a while, and Hermione's figure appeared beside Lu-Ren. This Hermione is slightly different. To be precise, she is much bigger than Hermione in the real world, and more importantly, she is naked. Lu-Ren's beautiful figure was unobstructed in front of Lu-Ren, and then she stuck it up, wrapping around Lu-Ren like a snake, and Lu-Ren could feel her heartbeat, body fragrance, and the heat of her breath. To be honest, she doesn't deserve you, you deserve better. She's nothing more than a dirty mudblood. Riddle looked at it with interest. I can avoid it for a while. Or, another one. He waved his hand, and the adult version of Alice joined the scene. End of this chapter. Chapter 221 Confrontation at the Soul Level. It would be a lie to say that Lu-Ren was not moved, but he knew that these were all fictitious, and there was a lot of water in them, which he could not grasp. He understood better that at this moment he was already at an absolute disadvantage. This is a confrontation at the soul level, and he doesn't even know how to fight back. But this is not the reason for him to sit still. Lu-Ren pushed away the two girls who were entwined with him, and how to draw out his wand. Thunderbolt explodes. I have to say, I appreciate you more and more. Riddle released an iron armor curse in front of him, successfully resisting Lu-Ren's spell. Great wizards will not be fooled by beauty. Come on, join me. I can satisfy the deepest desire in your heart. He stood up. A layer of black air gradually emerged around him, with an ominous aura. Just one look, and a feeling of death and despair came over his face. Riddle's eyes turned into a pair of snake pupils. He glanced at Lu-Ren, and Lu-Ren felt that he couldn't move. The basilisk. He said with difficulty. You actually know the basilisk? You really surprised me. Yes, the great Lord Voldemort successfully fused the blood of the basilisk and gained infinite power. He grabbed Lu-Ren's neck and held his hand. The black air on the ground spread to Lu-Ren little by little. Even if it's just the remnant soul of the Dark Lord, you can't stop it. Riddle said to Lu-Ren coldly, but it's okay, soon, you will be me, and I will be you. It is your glory, because the great devil recognized you. In reality, Lu-Ren was standing in Myrtle's bathroom. Half of his face was covered with a layer of black air, and the black air was constantly spreading, and Lu-Ren's body gradually began to tremble. Riddle's diary was lying open on the ground, continuously dripping red ink like fresh blood. Suddenly, there was a dragon's cry from Lu-Ren's heart, and a red light spread from his heart. For a moment, Lu-Ren's eyes that were not stained with black air regained some clarity, and he escaped from the illusion for a short time. Period. At this time, Lu-Ren's point of view was the constant rotation between the principal's office and the abandoned bathroom. With a dragon chant, he broke free from Riddle's shackles and regained his mobility. You can always surprise me. Riddle's face darkened. He hated his plans being disrupted the most. The young man in front of him is the most ideal carrier. If he can possess him and control him, then his resurrection will go smoothly. But the plan was disrupted again. With the addition of Norbert, the battle situation is no longer one-sided. Riddle's monopoly on the illusion has been broken by Norbert, and now Lu-Ren has also obtained certain authority. Dragon scales grew out of Lu-Ren's body, his eyes became vertical pupils of dragons, his fingers became slender, and his nails became hard and sharp. There are many dragon features on Lu-Ren's body. He felt some itching on his back, so he tore his robe in half, and two bulges could be seen growing on his back, and then with a stab, two wings covered in black leather grew out. Tom. Riddle. Lu-Ren's voice was very low. When he opened and closed his mouth, thick smoke came out from his mouth and nose, and the black air on his body gradually evaporated. Call me Lord Voldemort. Riddle looked very disgusted with the name. He was shocked by the changes in the young man in front of him. He couldn't imagine that this guy had already signed a contract with Yilin. Lu Ren's soul, plus the soul of an entire dragon, is already much stronger than 1/7 of Voldemort. Riddle is still in control of the situation now, entirely due to his subtle micromanagement and the advantages he gained earlier. Lu Ren gradually understood the magic of the power of the soul. He clasped his hands together, and then separated them. A ball of flame appeared between his palms, and then spread, burning everything around him. It was extremely difficult for Lu Ren to do all this, and 2 lines of blood flowed from his eyes. In the end, the Hogwarts built by Riddle collapsed, and the two stood in the void, with buildings constantly being formed and annihilated under their feet. The two of them, one dragon, were engaged in a spiritual confrontation. There were faint shadows of mountains under Lu Ren's feet, while Riddle was trying his best to reconstruct Hogwarts. They both wanted to pull each other into their own construction. In the illusion. In the end, Riddle was exhausted. All his strength was a castle in the air. Without his body, all his magical powers were like a rootless duckweed. If he could not seize Lu Ren's body through a blitzkrieg, what awaited him was perish. Up to now, the power that Riddle has stolen has been exhausted. Although Lu Ren has also consumed a lot, he can recover little by little with his physical body. In the end, Lu Ren pulled Riddle into his illusion. Riddle is now stuck in a large swamp, unable to move, while on the top of Lu Ren's independent mountain, rays of light with countless mysterious characters inside are hovering beside him like bright moons rising. Lu Ren let out a cold snort, wiped the magic wand around his waist with his left hand, started slowly and then swiped upwards. With his movement, the magic wand suddenly lit up with sword light and turned into a long spear. The long spear looked ingenious and ineffective. The whole body is dark in color, the head and tail of the gun are golden, and there is a sense of solid heaviness in the thick. As soon as the spear emerged, the entire space was shaken. In an instant, the spear soared into the sky, and in just an instant, it rushed out of the sky with an earth-shattering momentum. Then it merged with the heaven and earth of this space, and fell with an incomparable power and the dignity of the entire land. The sky is falling. This was the first word that came out of Riddle's heart, and he felt a sense of suffocation, as if he was about to be suppressed by the earth. Wait for me. Before he finished speaking, the spear fell, and the dust that burst out covered the sky and the sun in an instant. When everything dissipated, the swamp had disappeared and turned into a flat land, and Riddle was completely suppressed. Then, the mountains and the ground crumbled little by little, and finally Lu Ren returned to the bathroom. The blackness on his face dissipated completely. The diary lay lifeless on the ground, already soaked in water, and a faint khaki color appeared on the paper. Even though he felt dizzy and had a splitting headache, Lu Ren persisted in grabbing Riddle's diary. He could feel that Voldemort's soul had fallen into silence. Now if he wanted, he could even use this diary to make a diary Horcruxes. But the method of Horcruxes is really stupid. Powerful wizards like Grindelwald and Dumbledore have never considered making Horcruxes, and Lu Ren didn't bother to do it. He summoned his good friend Norbert. Noble, bite it. End of this chapter. Chapter 222. Lu Ren, just want to live a peaceful life. Noble's venomous fang pierced the center of the diary. A puff of yellow dust erupted with a terrible, long-lasting scream that pierced the eardrums. Streams of viscous ink burst out from the diary, sprayed on Lu Ren's hands, and then flowed to the ground. A phantom of Riddle appeared in the diary. He was twisting, struggling, waving his arms non-stop, screaming in pain, and then disappeared with a slap. The diary fell to the floor, and everything fell silent, except for the ink still dripping from the diary and the sound of the bathroom toilet leaking. Norbert's fangs had burned through the diary, which is still hissing with yellow-black smoke. Seeing that the diary was destroyed, Lu Ren smiled gratifiedly, then rolled his eyes and passed out. When he woke up, he was already lying on the bed in the school hospital. Hermione was sitting by his window, with a notebook spread out on the bedside table, writing and drawing in her hands. Hermione. Lu Ren was a little surprised, but the scene in front of him was unexpected but reasonable. You're awake. Hermione jumped up in surprise, and hugged Lu Ren into her arms. Do you know how worried I am? You've been in a coma for weeks. It's almost November now. Lu Ren, who was held in Hermione's arms, couldn't lift a bit of strength. He could only feel the warmth and faint fragrance. Okay, I apologize. Lu Ren glanced at Hermione, who seemed to be staying here, feeling a little surprised. Madame Pomfrey actually allows you to stay here forever. It wasn't originally, but she grabbed my hand and didn't let go after a visit. Madame Pomfrey thought that my staying with you might help your recovery, so let me be free in and out of the ward. Lu Ren, this. Speaking of which, who discovered me? Is there any explanation from the outside world? Lu Ren was also a little curious about the reaction from the outside world. You disappeared for several days, causing everyone to panic, and then Professor Dumbledore found you in the abandoned girls' bathroom. Hermione's expression became a little strange. Well, for your reputation, he didn't advertise this, just said that you were trapped in some magical trap and were seriously injured. Lu Ren. Indeed, if someone found him fainting in the women's bathroom, some rumors might spread, and then he could prepare for Boxburton's transfer procedures. Of course, the reason for not going to Durmstrang is because it is located in Northern Europe and it is too cold, not because Boxburton has many beautiful girls, the food is particularly good, and the scholarships are generous. After calculating the benefits of Boxburton in his heart, Lu Ren suddenly wanted to transfer schools. Why are you in trouble again? Hermione sighed from the side, but this time you don't seem to have violated any school rules, and the school doesn't seem to have any punishment for breaking into the abandoned women's toilet. Lu Ren is also very helpless, he just wants to live a peaceful life, but the tree wants to be quiet but the wind keeps blowing. After chatting for a while, Dumbledore also came in. He naturally sat beside Lu Ren's bed, and Hermione also left quietly. Lu Ren, we seem to meet more times here than in the office. Dumbledore was still so naughty. Yet, I think I can arrange an exclusive bed in the school hospital. Lu Ren also felt that it was outrageous, and he couldn't remember how many times he had been in the hospital. Dumbledore took out the wreckage of the diary and placed it on Lu Ren's bedside. It has been completely destroyed. Lu Ren picked it up, and it felt a little cold and subtle. Even if Lu Ren didn't know the origin of this book, he would subconsciously think that this book is not simple. Its most evil function is gone, but there is still a bit of magic power left. It can be regarded as a half-scrap alchemy item. Dumbledore took back the notebook, wrote a few words on it, and then a plate of mints projected. It just appeared at Lu Ren's bedside. The projection is very elusive and choppy, but still recognizable as a plate of mints. Quite a fun little thing, isn't it? Can I keep it, Professor? Lu Ren also became interested in this notebook. Of course, Dumbledore put the diary under Lu Ren's pillow. Don't worry, I've already cleaned the diary, it's very clean. Indeed, a notebook soaked in toilet water is always a little annoying to keep around. Okay, can you tell me what happened to you? Dumbledore smiled, eyes hidden behind his half-moon glasses. So Lu Ren recounted the matter to Dumbledore in general, but made a few minor changes in a few places. First, Harry told himself that he kept hearing a ghostly sound, which he speculated was the sound of a basilisk lurking in a water pipe. Therefore, he tried his best to learn the language of the snake and discovered the secret room of Slytherin. In the end, the story turned into a story about him finding the diary and destroying it after deriving clues. After he finished editing, he applauded for his brain hole. After all, if he spoke out the truth, all the Gryffindor points might not be enough for him to deduct, and he might spend the second half of the semester in confinement. His crimes include, but are not limited to, forging the professor's signature to borrow books from the restricted area, breaking into the girls' dormitory, practicing animagus in private, and so on. According to Professor McGonagall, it is called violating more than 100 school rules along the way. Lu Ren believed that Dumbledore would not be able to hide the impromptu story he made up, but it was not a big problem. Obviously, Dumbledore was not interested in getting to the bottom of it. He just listened quietly. He had more important things on his mind, and that was how many Horcruxes Voldemort still had. Obviously, things like Horcruxes are precious. If you only had one Horcrux, would you use it like this? This Horcrux is too aggressive. It always takes the initiative to seduce others and make troubles. This makes it feel like Grandma doesn't hurt, Uncle doesn't love. This shows that Voldemort is very likely to have more than one Horcrux, which is why he does not cherish this book so much. This made Dumbledore feel a little uneasy and urgent, and a terrible idea took shape in his mind. Well, boy, I'm glad I just said to your friends Harry and Ron that if they break the school rules again, I'll have to expel them. It saves me from talking too much. Dumbledore. Lu Ren's expression made Lu Ren even feel like he was facing an urchin who has a 7 or 8-year-old dog. Let me think about it. You should get a special contribution award from the school, and, yes, you are the best. Gryffindor won 200 points. Lu Ren smiled, as expected of Grant's points. End of this chapter. Chapter 223. Fred, you really show me. Soon, Dumbledore left the infirmary. Before leaving, he asked Lu Ren about the location of the secret room. Lu Ren knew that Dumbledore might seal the secret room himself in the future. I am afraid that it will be difficult for anyone to open the secret room again. 2 days later, Lu Ren was discharged from the hospital. At this time, the story that he won the Special Contribution Award of the school and earned, points for Gryffindor at one time has spread. Fortunately, the things that spread were infinitely close to the truth, and he admitted it frankly. He uncovered the mystery of the secret room and defeated the remaining power left by the mysterious man. This undoubtedly made him famous, but the negative effect is also obvious. He is now as conspicuous to Lockhart as a torch in the night sky. There is only gratitude in my heart. What is self-sacrifice? This is. The timing of Lu Ren's discharge from the hospital was very timely. He caught up with the first Quidditch match of the season, Gryffindor vs. Slytherin. His discharge also encouraged Wood, because Fred's health was not good recently, and Lu Ren's performance in the previous training was extremely good, and he was enough to be Fred's substitute. However, after learning that Fred's symptoms were nosebleeds and diarrhea without warning, Lu Ren frowned, feeling that things were not that simple. Sure enough, after a whole day of targeted training arranged by Wood, Lu Ren was stopped by Fred and George on the way back to the castle. "I'm really tired." "What's the matter?" Lu Ren said weakly. His arm was sore and swollen. Wood asked him to try to hit the bludger from various angles. It was not an easy task. "Do you want to earn some galleons with me?" Fred said furtively with his back turned to Wood. "Lu Ren? Actually, the development of our magical prank props has encountered a bottleneck, and we lack the necessary startup funds. In fact, we have a big plan." Fred told Lu Ren about his dream, to open a magic toy store. In fact, their products are enough and they have accumulated some word of mouth. What is lacking is the startup funds for the leased store. And the next Quidditch match is a good chance to make money. They set a game for the game. The key to the outcome is Lu Ren. The original Gryffindor team belonged to the Dream Team, and they would probably win against Slytherin. But what if the powerful hitter Fred was replaced by the rookie Lu Ren? Lu Ren only played once, still as a seeker, and the Slytherin team was equipped with a new broom Nimbus 2001, so the number of wins and losses may not be easy to measure. To put it bluntly, it is to show the enemy weak, and then find a way to make other people bet more and bet on Gryffindor to lose. Lu Ren was dumbfounded when he heard this. This is really outrageous. Aren't you afraid of losing? Lu Ren was really worried that they would end up in debt because he wasn't confident in his own strength. After all, Fred said meaningfully, the dealer will never lose money. It turned out that their game was a little different from the game Lu Ren imagined. That is, as the banker, they had to take 5% of the total funds for operating. At the same time, only bet on the outcome, and the winner will share the prize pool according to the proportion of the bet. For example, after the drawing is completed, there will be, galleons in the prize pool. Those who bet on Gryffindor and those who bet on Slytherin will each get 50 galleons. Lu Ren bets 10 galleons to 20 galleons. The rules are simple and straightforward. Fred and the others don't even need to wager to make a good profit. After listening to this, Lu Ren just wanted to say, "Fred, you really showed me off. It's too outrageous. Can come up with such a ghost idea to make money." At this moment, Fred and George became more and more excited. "We can also sell some prank goods to adjust the atmosphere before the game. Yes, you can also sell some wine after the game, to celebrate success or relieve sorrow." The two quickly came up with a lot of crazy ideas, which made Lu Ren break out in a cold sweat. They even want to engage in an arms race, for example, telling Slytherin that Gryffindor has prepared a batch of big babies. In the end, Lu Ren also joined the game. Fred and George took out the 10 galleons they had accumulated over the years, and Lu Ren also filled in the 10 galleons since the establishment of the bet. Fred and George have often traveled between various colleges to publicize the bet. Of course, the banker of the bet is not the two of them, but this year's Hufflepuff freshman Alice. When Lu Ren heard this name, he was relieved. After all, this child has finally made a move. If she keeps hiding, he will have to worry about it for a long time. How could Alice not do something? It will be 2 months. This guy hasn't done anything yet, which made Lu Ren very flustered. Now she made a move, giving Lu Ren the feeling that a second boot had landed. Fortunately, it's just a white glove in the game of gambling. It's not a big problem, it's preventable and controllable. Lu Ren felt much relieved. The little wizards of Slytherin House are naturally not short of money, and they quickly poured up the prize pool, and the little wizards of Gryffindor were not to be outdone, and followed suit one after another. In just a few days, The accumulated prize money in the prize pool has approached triple digits. This large sum of galleons also attracted many young wizards from other academies. Interestingly, the little wizards of Hufflepuff mainly support Gryffindor, while the little wizards of Ravenclaw are more careful and careful. Some of them carefully weighed the strength comparison of the two teams, and then studied Leyland, and some little wizards tried to bet on both sides, so that they would not lose money. Soon, the Quidditch match became the center of attention. What was originally just a household affair between Gryffindor and Slytherin has now become the bread and butter of thousands of wizards. The night before the game, all kinds of prank toys were sold out, such as dung eggs, Weasley whoosh boom fireworks, decoy bombs and so on. Lou Ren even wondered if they would fight on the spot if they lost. He even saw Alice buying a whole set of joke products from Fred, and vaguely heard her words, "This is military expenditure, it cannot be saved." Lou Ren shivered suddenly. He thought it would be better to prepare a pill of Angong pill for Professor Dumbledore. Finally, Saturday came. Lou Ren woke up early and lay down on the bed for a while. Because of the upcoming Quidditch match, he was a little nervous. The Slytherin team they're facing has the fastest brooms that folks can buy, which will close the gap in strength between them. When he got to the auditorium, he found that the other members of the Gryffindor team had also come to the table earlier, but they also looked nervous, and it seemed that they had made a lot of bets. End of this chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224 Wood's Assassin, 2 Bread Clips. Theoretically, before the battle, one should have a good breakfast to ensure sufficient energy supply, but the problem is that people can't eat when they are tense. Lou Ren barely ate a piece of bread and cheese and lost his appetite, and the rest of his teammates were similar. Angelina was fiddling with her fried egg with a fork, Harry was observing the jam, George and Fred had gone nowhere, only Alicia Spinnet looked normal, but the ham on her plate, the sandwich hasn't changed volume in a long time either. Of course, everyone's tense mood was quickly replaced by another mood when Wood came over with a clipboard. Everyone's heads were hit with a hammer. All were taken to the Gryffindor dressing room. Wood began to arrange tactics for everyone in high spirits. "Okay, before going on the field, I would like to say a few words and reiterate our new tactics. I believe that victory will belong to Gryffindor." Then he posted on his clipboard a large schematic diagram of a Quidditch pitch, with lines, arrows and crosses of various colors drawn on it, which was the tactic he had arranged. He took out his wand and tapped it on the drawing board, and the arrows squirmed like caterpillars. "You guys have to remember that the core of our tactics is batter combination. Lou Ren, George, you have to form a two-pronged situation, try to kill the Slytherin team quickly, and then let Harry end the battle. The core of Wood's tactics is the word ball possession. By controlling the ball rights of the bludgers to fire suppression, the Slytherin team could not give full play to their advantages, and finally made the final decision through the gap between the seekers. Such a tactic puts a lot of pressure on the batsmen. Lou Ren and George need to work hard to catch the bludgers hit by the opponent, and at the same time try their best to cause interference to the Slytherin team. This is what they have been training before." After talking for nearly 10 minutes, Wood finally finished speaking. His monotonous voice played an unexpected role, that is, it dispelled the tension in the hearts of teammates. Of course, the negative effect was that the teammates wanted to push Wood's head to the toilet to go. "Listen, guys," he put away his clipboard, stood up and said, "We won the Quidditch Cup last year. Because our level is obviously higher than other teams. There's no reason why if you win last year, you will lose this year. It would be meaningless for the team to play if it is not for the pursuit of victory." It was almost time for the game to start, and the players all changed into bright red Gryffindor robes and adjusted their moods. "The Slytherin's brooms are better than ours," said Wood, "it's fair to say. But the guys on our broomsticks are better than them. We've trained harder than them, and we've flown in all kinds of weather." Wood wasn't lying about that. Fred said his clothes hadn't been dried since September. "You know, the quaffle is round, and anything can happen. There's no rule that whoever has the best broom wins." Wood successfully boosted morale. When they walked to the field, there was a carnival scene outside, and the 7 members of the Gryffindor Quidditch team stepped on their brooms and took off into the air. Their old opponent, Slytherin, also made the same choice. The two teams first flew around the field for a week, enjoying the cheers of their respective supporters, and then landed in the center of the field. The little wizards of Slytherin started to set off fireworks, and countless Gall Whoosh Boom fireworks exploded in their stands. The toys sold by Slytherin must not bear the Weasley brand, so these things have become the fireworks imported from France brought by Alice were 20% more expensive than the original price set by the Weasley brothers. The little wizards of Slytherin are also quite backbone. The same fireworks, they would rather spend 20% more money to buy French goods than donate gold galleons to the Weasley family. And Gryffindor here is one too. Let it go. Dozens of fireworks were set off at the same time, forming the words Gryffindor must win in midair. At the same time, the smoke from the fireworks formed a lion-shaped cloud, entrenched over the Quidditch pitch. Looking at the countless fireworks, Fred seemed to hear the sound of gallon burning, and couldn't help but smile happily. Listen to my whistle. 3, 2, 1, start. Ms. Hokey started the game after the fireworks in the sky cleared. 14 players leaped into the leaden sky together. Lou Ren's gaze had been focused on the bludger, and when he saw it was released, he sped up and rushed up. Soon, he was on the same level as the bludger. Seeing that Darian Pussy was not far away from him, Lou Ren first came to strengthen his power with our rune, and then said to Darian Pussy, "Have you ever been kicked by a voice? Adrian Puce? Question mark? Of course, Lou Ren is purely bragging. The speed of the bludger he hit may not even be 1/10 of the speed of sound. After all, it would be difficult for him to hit the speed of sound with human power, and being hit by a ball that reaches the speed of sound has the same outcome as being kicked by the speed of light. Both of them are dead, but they can still jump alive after being hit by the speed of light. That kind of plot can only appear in hot-blooded comics. The initial velocity of rifle bullets is 700 to 900 meters per second, which is higher than the speed of sound. So being hit by such a bludger is no different from being hit by a bullet with a diameter of 10 inches. Conscience, 10-inch bullets, 10 inches is about 25 centimeters. This is not called a bullet, but a 250mm anti-aircraft gun. This kind of turret can already be equipped on cruisers. However, the limit of human beings is still impressive. The speed of a fast-pitching player in baseball can exceed 160 kilometers per hour, which is also considered impressive. However, with the blessing of the healing runes, Lou Ren's shot was still ridiculously fast. Before Darian Puce could react, he was hit hard, and the bacon he ate in the morning was thrown out of his stomach. Immediately afterwards, before there were any cheers and exclamations from the stands below, George also seized a favorable position and hit the ball back, and then Lou Ren followed up with another powerful serve that was as heavy as a cannonball. The two cooperated. It was perfect, and the Slytherin team ran away with their heads in their arms. The audience was silent for a while. This tactic shocked Hogwarts just like Barcelona brought tiki-taka back then. Before this, professional Quidditch teams have indeed used this tactic, but this is the first time it has appeared on the Hogwarts court. Oh my god, the Gryffindor team is pang-pang-tata. Jordan yelled in shock. With his roar, Gryffindor's two-bread sandwich tactic officially changed its name, and was called pang-pang-tata by the Little Wizards. End of this chapter. Chapter 225. You guys stop, don't fight anymore. This tactic was first introduced, and the Slytherin team became its sacrifice under the impact of the bludger. Like an acrobatic catch, the Slytherin team could not organize an effective counterattack at all. The Little Wizards who bought Gryffindor in the audience were very happy, but those who bought Slytherin were much bitterer. Roger said to his teammates next to him with a dark face, "As long as Malfoy catches the snitch, everything will be fine." "Captain, I feel that Malfoy can't catch the snitch." Luna in the front row, wearing a big lion head hat, turned her head and said to Roger. Roger's face fell. Can he not know that this game has gone far? It's like a LOL game, with top and bottom lanes and a disadvantage in the wild. Do you expect the, in the middle lane to blow up Faker on the opposite side and win the game? So Roger stopped talking. Originally, he thought that Slytherin had a great advantage, but he didn't expect Wood to hide so deeply. The water in Hogwarts Quidditch is too deep. Roger can't grasp it at all. Thinking of his 3 galleons, he couldn't help but shed tears of regret. He must bet on Gryffindor next time. Just when the situation in Gryffindor was going well, a heavy black bludger suddenly flew towards Harry, and he narrowly avoided it, the wind from the ball even ruffling his hair. "Careful!" George yelled. "Sorry, just made a mistake." Then he slammed the bludger hard at one of the Slytherin batsmen with his club, only to have the bludger change direction and come straight for Harry again. Lou Ren was taken aback, I have already solved the secret room, why is Dobby doing such a bad job? Later, when he thought about it, he suddenly realized that it seemed that Dobby was not sure that he had really solved the secret chamber. After all, he only talked to Dumbledore about it, and it was obviously very difficult to eavesdrop on Dumbledore, so the misunderstanding happened like this. Harry quickly descended to avoid it, and Luren came over and hit it hard at Marcus. However, like a boomerang, the bludger turned around again and went straight for Harry's head. Dobby's just out of his mind. Luren was furious. How did Dobby come up with this kind of underworld operation? Maybe it's super confident in its own magic? To make matters worse, it started to rain in the sky at this time, and the audience below did not notice any abnormalities for a while. The rain interfered with their sight, and the vision of the players on the field was also disturbed, and Peng-Peng-Tada temporarily failed. The Slytherin team's super broomsticks came into play, and because Luren and George couldn't do both, the situation deteriorated rapidly. 80-20, Gryffindor is temporarily ahead. 80-60, Gryffindor is in danger now. Die? Oh my god, what the hell are they doing? There was a trace of despair in Jordan's voice. He couldn't figure out why Gryffindor, which had been doing well just now, collapsed now, and he had bet his pocket money for a semester. Someone tampered with this bludger, George muttered, and cooperated with Luren to knock the bludger that was attacking Harry into the air. In the rain, under the cover of Luren and George, Harry searched for the snitch. Finally, he saw the snitch. He accelerated towards the snitch, but although he was getting closer to the snitch, he also escaped the protection of Luren and George. The bludger and Malfoy were getting closer, but so was the snitch. Bang! Finally, the moment his hand caught the snitch, the bludger hit him too, slamming into his elbow so hard that Harry felt his arm go numb, followed by a prick of needles. The stabbing pain made him feel a little dizzy, and he slid weakly to the side of the broom, but fortunately he still had a sliver of reason, and hooked the broom with his leg before he was about to fall. At this time, the bludger launched a second attack at him, this time aiming at his face, but the next moment, it was whipped away by a black bat. Harry started to turn the direction of the broom and flew towards the ground. When he was not far from the ground, he couldn't hold on anymore and fell off the broom. There was a bang, a splash, and Harry landed in the mud, his arms bent at a very strange angle. Although there were bursts of severe pain in his arm, the golden snitch was still firmly held by him. The game is over. Gryffindor won. Mrs. Hooch was jumping off her broom and running towards Harry, but there was one person who was faster than her. It was Lockhart. He took the lead and ran up to Harry, looking down at him, showing a row of gleaming teeth. Behind Lockhart was a group of Gryffindor students. Although it was raining heavily, they still saw Harry fall from the broom. "Students, don't worry, no one here knows how to heal a broken arm better than me," Lockhart said loudly to the little wizards behind him, and the noisy voice completely drowned out Harry's protests. "Look, just a simple spell." Before the people around could react, Lockhart waved his wand, and Harry's arm no longer hurt, because Lockhart put all the bones in his arm. Time out. Although Lockhart made another unreliable move, no one cared about him at this time. Wood and Marcus were even nose to nose. Quite simply, Marcus felt that the bludger was out of control and the game should be terminated, so the score didn't count and a rematch was required. Of course, he ignored the fact that the bludger was out of control and made trouble. How could Wood accept such shameless remarks? Wood was so angry that he suddenly figured out something. "It's you Slytherins who tampered with the bludger. You are vile, shameless, dirty and obscene. You have sullied the competitive spirit of Quidditch." Marcus's face was swollen with anger, because he really didn't do the bludger thing. He also has a bottom line. "You fart. We Slytherins have a limit." "Hell, Slytherin still has a bottom line." Angelina sneered at the side. "Enough, the results of the competition are valid." Mrs. Hooch made a final decision and concluded the results of the competition. "I will report to Professor Dumbledore. Now you all get out of the way. I will send Mr. Potter to the infirmary." After Harry was sent away by Mrs. Hooch and Professor McGonagall, the smell of gunpowder on the field became more and more intense. The little wizards of Gryffindor and Slytherin were unwilling to leave even in the heavy rain, and people from the two colleges gradually gathered in the middle of the Quidditch pitch. "Stop it all, stop fighting." Lockhart suddenly ran between the two groups of people and shouted with open arms. End of this chapter, end of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.